Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 240, part 1. We are joined again by Tyler Jones with Espinosa Cigars.
Hello, Stephen.
Hello. You've
Nathaniel.
been on several times.
Yes, sir.
Do we know a number? I don't.
I think it's safe to say maybe this is the 7th.
Yeah, I'd say around that.
7's close.
First
I'd have
time
to
you were
check
on.
spreadsheet.
First time you're on, at least you were not with Espinosa Cigars at the time.
Correct.
But the last 4 or 5 you have been. You've been on with Eric Espinosa was on one. Were you on the stage for that one?
I was not. That was Eric rocking it himself.
And then I called him in on one of the ones that you were on.
Correct. That may have been my first one.
That was
just-
your first
That
one.
was my first
Yeah.
one. And I think we were doing Warhead 6 at that point.
Is that right?
So look at that. We're on Warhead 8 already.
Yeah, you
Holy
were
shit.
talking shit about beating him in dominoes, and so
That's the
Steve
one.
texted him in the intermission.
Fucking snitch.
That's the one. That's the one. Great stuff.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Yeah, so tonight we do have the Warhead 8 from Espinosa Cigars. Thank our sponsors here. Thank you guys for joining in, obviously, first and foremost. And if you are a supporter of us or want to try to support the show in any way, obviously, first, review, share, like it, all that good stuff. But also you can do the patreon.com page. It's patreon.com/Bourbon and BS podcast. And there are 3 different tiers, or you can do a one-time contribution through Venmo at Bourbon and BS. If you guys join us on the Patreon, we'll track that, and we do have some swag for you for anyone new. We haven't had any new members, but we've had some long-standing members of the Patreon community, so we appreciate that very, very much. That helps us put on the show, both the video, obviously the audio, and everything else. And, yeah, it's been great.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
And also, Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. Tinderbox at Easton, that's where they do carry the Warhead 8 from Espinosa Cigars, along with a big chunk of your guys' portfolio. They will also be visited by Tyler Jones and Eric Espinosa next Thursday, so a week from tomorrow, for a prime rib dinner at their neighbor, Fidel Irish Pub and Restaurant. That's going to be, like I said, Thursday, October 13th. Last I checked, there were 3 tickets available.
Woo!
Out
Selling
of
fast.
the 40 spots. So, yeah, snatch that up if you guys are in the area. Check them out. If you're not in the area, you can, obviously, they do shipping as well if you don't have a local brick and mortar. Altadis USA normally provides the second cigar of the evening, along with continued support. So thank you, Josh Bentley, and everyone at Altadis USA.
Not tonight.
Not tonight. We have all Espinosa every day. Hashtag not in that order.
The hashtag
I
usually
nailed
comes
that.
before.
I nailed that. Yeah, pound sign.
Pound sign.
Give me a pound sign.
That's right.
BS Cigar Company, the gold and silver. The gold's made by Plasencia, and that's going to be all Nicaraguan, medium body. The silver is made by Espinosa Cigars.
Do we have any silvers laying around?
I got some inside if we need to grab some.
Woo!
But yeah, so those are going to be fuller bodied, medium to full with pepper to them. The silver comes in 3 sizes, both the gold and silver.
It tastes like an Espinosa.
Tastes like an Espinosa,
like
and
an
even Eric himself says it's a pepper bomb, especially
Yeah.
in the what they call the Robito size, which is a 46 ring gauge. So
Yeah.
Rabito.
Robito,
I brought 4 different Espinosas with me tonight.
I like it. Overachiever.
My man.
As we get started, I'm going to go ahead and share it to not only the Bourbon and BS community page on Facebook, but also my personal page and some other cigar and bourbon pages. See if we want to get anyone out there. And I encourage you guys to do the same. If you guys like the 3/4 sleeves that I've got on, or also Nate has on, that's going to be on the buyjack.com/bourbon and BS in several colors. Also, the podcast shirts available on there, the podcast hoodie, BS hoodies, everything else. Small portion goes towards the show, but that's a way just to get swag out there. We keep the prices low. And if you are a Patreon member, I can get you the different login for that if you want to get your deal as a Patreon member of the show. So
The 3/4 sleeves are fucking comfortable as hell.
Yeah.
I love them. I got every color.
colors, this one, I mean, I do like the white, black, and gold.
Yeah, that's a great one.
That one that Nate's got on.
Makes the arms look a little bit bigger.
You know, yeah.
The white helps.
Colors
right
pop,
there.
the arms pop, you know what I mean?
The arms pop.
Steve doesn't need help making his arms
But
look bigger.
I do like the one I've got on. I mean, the colors pop. It's very I chose the black
Yeah.
body, and then we have the gray sleeves, which is more subtle. We have
like little
this
St. Louis Blues
royal
hockey
blue,
color.
and we
Yeah.
have the bright red sleeves and logo on there as well. So buyjack.com does a great job for us. So check them out, buyjack.com/bourbon and BS. And they also have other stuff on there as well for other stuff, like our friends at Bourbon and Blonde. So definitely check those out. All right. It's all the business side of things. What are we? Hour in, cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna light up.
You've gotten better with that over the years.
Thanks,
Part
man.
two.
Part two. All right, Beyond the BS. Thanks for tuning in. No, tonight, like I said, let's start with a cigar. We're drinking a bottle that I think I had for the first time over this long weekend when I was down in Florida, and I posted a picture of it. And Tyler asked, like, do you want to do that for the podcast? And I said, oh, no, I'm not bringing this back. Like, I'm drinking this here. And he's like, no, I have a bottle.
No, I know how good that stuff is. Trust me, I got a full bottle.
Well, and I got it for, $65 a bottle, which is, I guess, the going rate secondary. In the state of Ohio, if you can find it, which you can't, it's $50. But it was one of those things. I was like, everywhere we walked into down there, it was like $80. You know what I mean? Like, drinks it was touristy area, but I mean, it was just like, so even Kristen said, why don't we just get a bottle because we're going to go to the beach. We're going to, so I had my Yeti and I drank back at the hotel. It was $65 for a bottle for a long weekend was a steal compared to paying for drinks everywhere.
I mean, you're going to save, so much money on that.
So it's great.
No, and this is a great bottle. I absolutely love this one. And you're like, yeah, this is really good. I'm like, yeah, trust me. Me and Jake have had quite a few drinks out of the bottle I brought back for him, but I never cracked mine open, so I was like, oh, perfect. I could bring this for the podcast. And I'm like, have you guys done this one? I don't think I've ever seen you guys do it. And at this point, 240 episodes later, it's hard to find some stuff that you guys haven't done.
It is
true.
So that was actually kind of nice that that just happened to be sitting there, and I was like, I haven't cracked this open in a while, and then boom, you posted that. I was like, perfect.
Well, I appreciate it because I fell in love with the bottle. I was more than half tempted to pick up another one, and they had it at the place I got, which was a ripoff all the way around. But then they had it at another store, a cigar shop, actually, for $5 less. It was $59.99. I thought about picking it up, but then I was like, I'll hit one more liquor store. They'll probably have it too. They didn't have it.
Oh, really?
And that's where I got that Pure Kentucky.
Oh, nice.
So, but yeah, we'll get into that here momentarily. We do want to talk because we do have Tyler from Espinosa Cigars. We are smoking it's a limited release, annual release, and it's called the 601 La Bomba Warhead VIII.
Correct. Spot on.
Just
you got it the right,
per the SKU on the back.
Right. Yeah. You got it in the right order too.
I try.
Yeah. The La Bomba Warhead series is something we do every year. Limited, production project that we do for the whole year. Only a certain amount of, boxes are going to be made and stuff like that. And it's something special to us that we've been kind of known for this 8 years now that we've done a different warhead. So it's definitely a popular release that we get, asked about every year. Like, what's the next size going to be? Because we only do it in one unique size every year. Jeez. Yeah. I inhaled that whole puff that he just took. Thanks, Nate.
I'll try and exhale.
Jeez.
Yeah, right.
What was I saying? Yeah, it's
so we do size every year.
Right. So we only do one size of every year and stuff like that. The first year I was on board, we did which was the Warhead VI. We did the 5.5 by 56 box press Figurado, which was a huge success. And it was probably one of the more popular ones, I would say, the one that people still ask about to this day a lot, which I loved the blend too. Essentially, that was beautiful in that size. And then last year, the 7, we did a 7 by 50 box press Churchill. Which
when you guys do box presses though, like on that, it seems like a 48 or even like small.
It does. Yeah, I think
it's almost like a.
I think the general rule of thumb almost is when you box press something,
but
it kind of like it drops a couple ring gauges realistically. Yeah. So like this is a box press 6x60, the one we're smoking this year's edition. And it doesn't feel like a 6x60 at all. I'm not a 6x60 fan by any means.
It's a box press, but it's rectangular, not like
it's a trunk press.
Yeah,
it's a soft trunk press, and it really just smokes beautiful in this format, and it definitely has the power. For whatever reason, last year's just didn't have that oomph that it usually has,
which is surprising at a 50 ring gauge, in my opinion.
Right,
I would think that it'd be more amped up.
I don't know if it's because of how long it was. Maybe it just didn't seem as aggressive. I don't know what it was about it, but it just didn't have that La Bomba, effect that it usually has.
It did kind of remind me of.
It was more chocolatey, I thought.
It reminded me a little bit more of the 601 Blue Short Churchill, a little bit. In terms of the strength, the flavor, size.
Same ring gauge and same wrapper, essentially. So that makes sense. Different binders, fillers, of course. But But no, this one definitely packs the punch like it did before, and it smokes beautiful. And I don't even care if it's a bigger ring gauge than I generally like to personally smoke, because I mean until recently, Espinosa really doesn't really do 6x60s. I mean, La Bomba 6x60 was the only 6x60 when I started with the company.
Yeah.
And now we've got Azulejo Laranja in a 6x60.
You got
Murcielago we recently made in a 6x60. If you haven't tried that, it's fantastic.
Well, I guess the La Bomba, the yellow band, it is a round.
That's a round traditional 6x60,
which is uncommon for Espinosa even more, because the round was like the Trabuco size that you guys do.
Right, which is like a 58, which is slightly,
58.
but it appeased those 60 ring gauge guys. Yeah, that's an old Cuban size too and stuff like that. So, but we, which that's huge for Cuba.
So I will say though, I mean, and to not to go off that direction too much, but I mean, I think the relationship that Eric Espinosa has and the company has now with AJ Fernandez, it has expanded not only the tobacco, what molds are available. Like, I mean, it does give that, because I remember when we were doing the BS Silver project, and this was back in 2015, before he really got with AJ on a lot of this stuff, most of it was coming out of La Zona factory, which is the Espinosa factory in Esteli.
Yes.
We wanted to do like a 7x58 like we had done with the gold. At that time, it was with Cas Fernandez or Aganor sleeve, and we were working with Eric. We already had a 7x58, and he says, I don't have that mold.
Right.
I have a 6.5x58 if you want to do that. So I would assume that working with AJ Fernandez, it's opened up just those small things no one thinks about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like to do molds, like to make
molds are expensive.
Yeah, it's not cheap, and it does take, expenses, and then also you have to be able to have your rollers be able to do that, the different sizes and everything like that. So, I think the expansion of the relationship with AJ Fernandez has opened up, obviously, a lot of different opportunities, because you still have the La Zona factory pumping out product for you guys, but also you guys grew so quickly that, this works out, I think, for everyone, including little things like that people don't always think about, is that the sizes that are available.
And God bless Hector and the work that he does. And like some of the line extensions we've done this year, you mentioned the Murcielago 6x60, and then we added the Toro box press to the Crema line.
Yeah.
And just expanding size in the sizes realm, not, new blends by any means, but new sizes, puts more, tools in our tool belt as reps. And we get to put that on other retailers and get them to try it out and see how that works.
Exactly.
Because we brought the Churchill Murcielago and tinderbox, and that thing.
Now we can't get it.
You can't keep it in stock. You guys, you're right. Yeah, you got some coming. I saw the shipping notification. You got a lot of stuff coming.
Yeah, we do sell it.
Yeah,
until we can't sell it because it's not available.
Yeah, and you guys ran through them really fast, and thank God.
Well, I remember at one point, Tinderbox also had the Murcielago Toro round, which was an exclusive.
It was.
Yeah, I think I still have one of those in my humidor.
I never smoked one of those.
That was beautiful.
Which is hard to believe because I've smoked everything.
That was but that was I think that was before you started with that.
Well, yeah, that definitely. Yeah. But even like I came up to the shop and stuff. I'm surprised I never grabbed one.
Oh, they went quick.
I'm sure they did.
It did, and
that's a huge brand for you guys too. You guys move a ton of Murcielagos.
We do.
Oh,
which why wouldn't you? I mean, it's a phenomenal cigar. I mean, you guys carry it in like what 4 sizes?
Yeah,
Toro,
at least
Churchill, Rubito, and 660.
Yeah, I think we've got 3 on the shelf right now.
Yeah. You would have 4 if we could have Churchills, but thank God that got fixed.
So
you guys got Churchills.
Well, I mean, I know one customer in particular comes in like every other day, and first words out of his mouth are 4 Rubitos of the Murcielago. So
that Rubito is a special size, man. I love that.
Oh, it is.
I think that blend really, really does well with that brand as a whole. But no, it's fantastic.
So this one is a 6x60, never been done in this blend, correct? We established that.
Correct.
All right. So the Warhead 8. What is the blend exactly?
So the blend essentially binders and fillers is the same as 601 La Bomba, the yellow band, and then we put a Nicaraguan broadleaf wrapper instead of the Nicaraguan Habano that we usually use.
And that's the only tweak on it.
That's the only tweak on it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing just how much that wrapper just changes everything, right?
It does.
Absolutely. And it's I definitely love the way it smokes. It's meaty, it's got that oomph to it, it's got the spice, the earthiness, those characteristics that you love out of the La Bomba line. And then it's just got that nice rounded, like kind of cocoa and a little bit of sweetness on that broadleaf that really just like rounds out the blend beautifully. And I really enjoy that size for sure.
So you say every year the Warhead is a different size. Is there any rhyme or reason to picking the size each year?
Well, after so many times, you just got to find out what sizes are left to do.
Sure.
At this point, we like I said, we're not really a big 6x60 company, but that's one size in it that we never did. We do that in the normal La Bomba, but it's not box press.
Box press.
So we ended up, doing it this year like that, and it's been tremendous. I mean, can't.
Well, I'd love to talk to Hector if he was the one kind of working on this project, like a lot of them, or Eric, but I would imagine it goes back to maybe what I said, that in this last year or so, you guys have been offering this size in, like we just discussed, the Murcielago,
Laranja,
Azulejo. I mean, you've got this size available now, so why not introduce a successful annual release project? It is interesting, though, to see where you go from here, though. I mean, it's
right. Yeah, I'm wondering what next year's
annual
going to be.
releases. To your point, you run out of sizes, so it's one of those things that you'd think that you're going to have some repeats. I mean, look at Pete Johnson with Tatuaje. Like, he's starting to come back with, it's like, all right, I did the Monster Series. I was going to just do whatever it was, the Lucky 13 or whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I mean, it's been a pretty successful project. So now it's the Frank Redux, and it's like, like, so.
Yeah. Do we go back to
Do you go back to something? Do you tweak the blend again? Do you add like some other factor to it? You don't just do, the tweak on the 601. Do you turn Warhead? Do you do there's got to be something else there.
Yeah. Like we
like, what do you do for the Warhead 10? The most popular size in the last 10 years? What do you do?
Like, it was weird. Like, when we did 6 that winter, we did a super small production of the Warhead 1 through 5 sampler.
Yeah.
That went like, we did like 200, I think 250, maybe not even, I don't even think it was more than 250 of those samplers. And we set them to select retailers and stuff like that. And that was and we put like a special coin, like Warhead coin in it. They all had different Warhead coins essentially, but it ended up we ended up getting it. There's like 10 of the samplers that had like a gold one. Mm-hmm. So it was like a gold ticket almost kind of thing. And you got like your free you got invited to Lazona Palooza, I believe. Maybe for that.
So instead of Eric Espinosa, it's Willie Espinosa.
Yeah, I mean, in Lazona Palooza, like, again, I mentioned the Lazona factory, and so Lazona Palooza is kind of Eric's annual event for loyal, high level, and I say high level, just like, it's not like high rollers necessarily, but it's like, people that are very much into Espinosa
people
cigars.
that support
They've
the company,
established it. They're
social media.
Yeah,
part of you guys have what's the club also?
Espinosa Elite.
Yeah, Espinosa Elite, which is great. I mean, so a lot of the company has a very loyal following, and so this annual event down at your guys's your warehouse, and then I know you had that dinner, and this last year with the knuckle sandwich, which we have that on deck from you guys, the knuckle sandwich Maduro, the project with Guy Fieri. Like, he was there for a little bit at the Lazona Palooza, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like there's
wasn't
a lot.
That the official launch of the knuckle sandwich?
No, we shipped it probably like it was like 3 weeks prior. That's when we started shipping knuckle sandwich, and after that, that's when Lazona Palooza happened. It was supposed to be November of the year before, when we were supposed to do it originally, but with COVID and stuff like that, we kind of had to postpone it to March. And it was fantastic. We spent the first 2 days in our warehouse, drinking, smoking, having a great time.
Yeah.
We had a DJ in there, did prizes and stuff like that for everybody.
It's a big party.
Yeah, it's a big party essentially. And it's a great way to thank the people that are super loyal to us as a company, that posts on social media, on our Lazona Facebook page.
Yeah. Which I shared this broadcast too. So hopefully we have some people listening to that tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it was a great party. And then the last day, like you were saying, we did a knuckle sandwich, like finishing rounding out party for everybody. Yeah. And Guy Fieri was there for a couple hours taking pictures, talking to some of our guys and stuff like that. And that was really the first time he got to see like what Espinosa is really about when it comes to the Espinosa, Lazona Palooza family and stuff like that. So
the fans of the brand. Yeah.
I mean, he did something with Abe at Smoke Inn. For his great smoke. He did an appearance there, and him and Eric were sitting at a table like signing boxes, and we sold a dumb amount of boxes.
Yeah, I bet.
Like more boxes than anyone else at that event. And it was super successful launch there. And then he did something in Puerto Rico with Eric. And so yeah, it's that. And then Luzona Palooza came and he did that. So that was really fun, and we really enjoyed it. But yeah, it's
a fun partnership.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't wait till this the new knuckle sandwich ships, the chef special.
Chef special. So a longer figurado, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
Yeah, it's a box press 6.5 by 52 figurado.
It's a good smoke.
It's a completely new blend, darker Habano Oscuro wrapper from Ecuador, and then Nicaraguan binder and fillers. I mean, it's coming out of AJ, and it's a 10-count box. Amazing cigar.
Yeah.
I wanted to smoke like 30 when we were in Vegas.
It's greedy.
Yeah,
it's greedy.
But it was very greedy, but I got as many as I could.
Well, this one
Hector was keeping guard of them pretty good on there.
That's the other fun part about this Warhead. You mentioned the 10-count box on that. You guys do that with some of your limited releases, but every year it's a different color scheme.
Yeah,
as well. So it's a 10-count box.
Yeah, we had like those LA Ram colors last year,
which
is weird because they won the Super Bowl after that.
Yeah.
I just thought about that.
Should do some Chicago Bears colors or something like that on one of them, like a nice navy and orange.
I was thinking more some black and yellow, for the old Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, you guys have had six.
Hey, you give me Kenny Pickett all day long. MVP Mitch is put to the grave already. Let's
Kenny
go.
Pickoff. Kenny Pickoff. Here we go.
That's right.
How dare you?
How dare you? That's a young man has a future.
Stallion.
Yeah. He's got a great future, I saw. Nate, if you would lean a little bit towards Tyler, I know it's a little bit awkward, but if you see behind Nate, if you're watching on the video, that's from a while back, but that's the 601. That's the red and white sign.
That's a great looking sign.
It is, and it's got the bomb on there, and that's exactly what the band is. It's I think always, if not typically, going to be at the foot band. There's not really a traditional band on there. It's always on the foot, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Yeah.
10-count box. And again,
$11 MSRP, so nothing egregious by any means. For
it isn't
edition, especially at a 6x60.
And the artwork's a little bit unique every time, but it does have. It's not just a rebranding of it, if you will, or they just put the same band on there. This one does say Warhead, and then with the Roman numeral 8 on there. So our sign back there just says Warhead. I think that's just the generic one. That's kind of the pinup girl from back in what?
World War II.
World War II.
Oh yeah, the greatest generation, huh? We're gonna go into that.
We weren't even born. No, we weren't even born.
We weren't even a thought. Our parents weren't even born.
My dad was born in 44,
but stand corrected.
Yeah, I'm older than you guys. All right, cool.
Not by much.
Jonathan Herring throwing some shade there. Jesus. Modeled after Tyler's first.
How's that LaGloria, Jonathan?
She left him. Yeah. I mean, still, it's good.
Go there.
It's still good work, though. I mean,
I'm so proud of that. I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, no. Okay. The cigar. So we also have Bo. That's Bo from Rocky Indy, right?
Yeah, Bo Masick. Shout out.
So he's listening. He says, "How's the Heaven Hill pair with it?" We'll get to that momentarily. I want to say something about the cigar. It's the box press on this. One of the things I like about Espinosa Cigars versus some other box press cigars is that it is, and if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, I've heard over the years that there's usually two different ways to do a box press as far as the filler, and that's either to add a filler leaf to the blend or to take one out.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, over the years, knowing Eric, I believe it is you guys remove a leaf from, if it was a traditional round one, like when you did the first Laranja, which is now the Laranja Reserva. It was always that, but now it's called that because it's the orange band. When you did the Caixa, it was like, I think they took a filler leaf out. It tweaks the blend a little bit, gives it a different dimension to it as far as the flavor profile.
The airflow is different.
The airflow is different. That's what I was going to get to, is that it's some cigars, I'm not going to name the companies, but they get too airy, they burn up too quickly, and that's not necessarily typically the case with the Espinosa cigars.
Yeah.
Jack's killing me.
Oh, him and Jonathan Herring are just going
at each other. At it. Great.
No, you're right though.
Colleagues.
You're right though. This does have a pretty effortless draw. Like you don't.
Oh, the draw is beautiful.
Yeah, you don't need to cut much of this off in order to be able to pull through it effortlessly.
And with that being said, for those, we've had some requests, and we're gonna have to do one here soon. But some of the back to the basics type stuff, as far as cigar smoking or the whiskey, but the cigar smoking. This is one that if you're pulling on it, it's more of kind of like a draw of a pipe, right? So it's a nice, easy draw. But when you have that on a cigar, whether it's really well constructed or not, but especially if it's not, in this case, it's well constructed. It's more of an easy draw. If you start pulling on this cigar, it's going to heat up because it does have an easier draw. And this is just my opinion, but you'll get more heat. It's going to start getting
tongue bite.
Yeah. So it's almost like, oh my God, this is getting like bitter or it's bitey and all stuff.
And you might think, oh my God, this thing's super aggressive. But if you kind of like sip on it a little bit, like don't smoke as aggressive, you change your pull, your natural, you're going to have your natural pull on the.
I like the way you said that. You want to sip on it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a Tyler Jones exclusive.
Yeah. Sip on it.
Trademark.
Michael
Scott. No, but it is a little bit. And again, I'm not kind of dancing around the issue like, again, that it's burning quickly. What I'm saying is that because you'll have that with certain cigars. And I think if it's too tight, and it's not like, again, this happens on every brand of cigars. Okay. Before anyone says anything, every brand of cigars, every price point, you're going to have one that's got a tight draw. If you're pulling on that too hard, it's going to be getting bitter. It's going to heat up as well. And it's going to draw even worse typically. So you want to use a draw poker if you can. In this case, it's the opposite, where you're going to have a little bit of an easier draw. And that's where I say, as Tyler said, sip on it. Just slow down, enjoy it. You don't need to keep pulling. Like this is one, like some cigars I take like 3 draws at once.
Yeah. That's
overworking
overworking it. And then you're not going to get that bitterness.
With this, you set it down. You take one puff and you still got a nice amount of smoke there. So I do like the way that you guys have always done your box press. I will say that.
Yeah, it definitely puts out enough smoke. I mean, it's a nice luscious mouthful too.
It is. Yeah. It is. You're just giving them more fuel on the comments.
I've already started. Might as well keep going. I mean,
it's fine. I'm just,
you might as well just feed it.
You guys are looking for some sideshow entertainment. Just look at the
just look at Jonathan Herring and Jack Tarano.
The comment feed going through here, and join us. Join us on the comments.
Right.
Nate, what do you think of this cigar?
I really enjoy this cigar.
Have you always been a fan of the Warhead series, or is it like year to year you're kind of hit or miss?
Remember that $20 I slipped you?
I forget it. Pass it over.
Prove it.
Exactly. No, I think
the cigars.
I think the first Warhead I had was the 6.
Okay.
Really? You didn't smoke any before that?
Not to my recollection.
Okay.
And I had smoked some Espinosa stuff, but it probably wasn't until Espinosa started making the BS Silver that I started smoking more Espinosa cigars. And then of course you coming on board and you being such a great friend of the Tinderbox at Easton and the podcast, like I smoke quite a bit more of them now than I used to.
It seems like it's either me or Jake he's tagging in his next post. I was joking with Jake the other day. I'm like,
he goes on runs. Yeah.
Well, I'm like, is it like me and you every other day or something like that?
Well, but that's because you guys are friends of the shop, friends of the show, and I like to support you guys however I can. One of those ways is smoking your product, putting it out there, tagging you guys, as well as recommending and selling those products to customers.
And we greatly appreciate it, sir.
I mean, it's one of those things, I've been in the
about that $20.
I've been in the retail side long enough, and when I used to be a rep, like if you take care of shops, those shops take care of you.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of the same thing. Like you've been great to us and great to the Tinderbox at Easton. So why not, give you guys some love on social media as well.
That's nice.
But no, I do like the cigar. The 6, 7, and 8. I've enjoyed all 3 of them that I can recall. This one, I've smoked a few of them now, and every year I do like my top 5 new cigars, but I try not to include limited edition cigars because those will be cigars that people won't be able to get year in, year out. Exactly. If I included limited edition cigars in my top 5 new ones each year, like this one would be in my top 5.
Okay.
It's a great smoke. I love the flavor. Probably the most enjoyable one I had was about a month ago. I was at home and I was drinking a 6-year rye with it. Initially, you would think full body cigar with a lot of.
That was like a Russell's, right?
It was it was Russell's Reserve 6-year rye. And your initial thought, for people who drink ryes would be like, okay, you have a full body, rich, spicy cigar, and then you have a straight rye, 95.5 rye, and you're sitting there going, that's going to just kind of overwhelm the palate.
It's going to be a lot, you would think.
This cigar made that rye taste like butterscotch. Like, it was so enjoyable. And it's
that's interesting.
And it's kind of doing the same thing with this Heaven Hill.
I was about to say, I just took that last sip, and right before you said butterscotch, and I was like,
oh, it's because a lot of times, and because we've had that experience before on the show where we've smoked full body cigars and we've drank fuller body or spicier whiskeys, and they just combat each other too much, and it's not a good pairing. Like, both of them on their own are really good, but as a pairing, they just kind of combat each other. This is one of those again, and obviously we'll wait till the ratings to talk about it, but they, even though they're both, this is a bottled and bond product, it just this cigar brings out a little bit more sweetness, and it's not going to do it for every whiskey, but at least does it in this one. Yeah. But I really enjoy the flavor, the draw, the construction. Sometimes I think the ash on this might be a little flaky, a little light.
I would agree with that.
Like, I haven't been sitting there, trying to get an ash contest going. But no, I mean, it's got a great flavor. Definitely a kick up in strength compared to the Warhead VII.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the Warhead VII kind of surprised me, because when I smoked that one last year, I was like, this smokes like a 601 Blue if it was just a hair lighter,
really?
which I was not expecting.
I kind of told people, like, in my opinion, like, the 7 was kind of like a high octane chocolate bar. Since I really got the cocoa notes kind of like were very like prominent in that, but it had the oomph, but like just not traditionally the Warhead oomph. This is, I mean, for crying out loud, the La Bomba is a line that we put a warning on the box.
I think that's more marketing, but yeah.
I mean, it's that cigar scares me sometimes. Like, I look at
La Bomba,
the regular La Bomba, I'll look at it in my humidor and I'll be like, yeah, that's not a La Bomba. Today's not a La Bomba day. I don't think, it's not a, sometimes that thing scares me. It can be a bit much at times, but whenever you're in the mood for that, you just want that earthiness, that pepper, that, that boldness, and you're just like, yeah, let's
see. I used to work
give me a fucking La Bomba.
When I was a rep, the company I rep for, their most popular line of cigars was 82% Ligero tobacco. So I was smoking those like every day.
Yeah.
So, smoking something like the regular La Bomba or any of the Warheads, like, that's nothing different.
I got to say too, though, with going from a 50 to a 60 ring gauge, you said it was a 7x50. This is a 6x60. Being as though a lot of the oomph, I think, again, different schools of thought out there. You hear it differently from everyone, but a lot of it does come from the strength, comes from the filler. Yeah, so again, with this being an easy draw, I mean, you're getting 60 ring gauge worth of filler on this. I think they did, but if you blend that correctly to match up with the blend, you have more tobacco in there, right? So this is something that I think would taste different than a 50 ring gauge, and smoke differently, because you got, again, with that little bit, not airy, but easy draw, it's delivering a lot of smoke, of smoke from that filler. So if you have the Ligero in there, if you have that from the normal 601 La Bomba, I mean, you're going to have that strength coming through on the bigger ring gauge.
Yeah, and we blend everything to size. I mean, Eric and Hector have said
so I think that's going to be part of it, is that why this is really coming at you as far as that. With the 50, again, like you try to keep the ratio.
Ligero you can put in
there.
You
try to keep that ratio different, but again, when you draw on a cigar that's a 50 ring gauge, you're going to get maybe different flavor, because again, that the ratio between the two. And again, I hear different people saying.
What was the wrapper on this one again?
It's that Nicaraguan broadleaf.
Oh, correct.
It's got a nice little toothiness to it as well.
Yeah, it does.
Giving it to the audience here. Sean's smoking as well.
No door. I'm like, oh shit.
Fuck out of here. Oh yeah.
I love it. At first, I was like, usually I go medium full, but this is pretty full. Obviously, I was schooled on that. And when I lit the foot right at the beginning, I took a retrohale, which I probably shouldn't have, but I did just to see what it'd be. And it was pretty spicy. But as I've been smoking it, it's definitely mellowed out. I can get some really good flavor with the retro, and it's really well constructed.
It's almost like it was front loaded a little bit.
Yeah,
Well, that's what we do.
Yeah.
We're quite open about that. You know, we do stuff a little bit different.
We talked about that a little bit last week as well.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I love about. I call it the journey of the cigar, because you start out and it's kind of, you've got that front load, and then you kind of,
it goes to, that's where the complexity comes in.
yeah,
like
and
that.
it's I mean it's fucking smooth for a. I mean, I'm in this. I guess I'm on the smooth part of it, because it's not burning, like it's not spicy to me. Maybe my nose.
I still get a little kick on the retro hail.
Maybe I burnt.
I'm rubbing my nose like every 5
nerve and
seconds after I
hair and-
retrohale it.
Maybe it
It's
burnt the
not
inside
good.
of my nose, all the smoke. But I love the flavor to it, and I think it, we'll talk about later with the pairing, but it pairs well too.
Well, let's talk about that Heaven Hill product that you brought here, Tyler. And again, I was happy to find this again down in Florida. I was also happy to be in Florida for a long weekend.
It looked awesome.
Lucked out on the weather. I had a lot of people asking and everything like that. We flew to Fort Lauderdale. We flew on Friday morning. Ian had come through, but mostly on the west side. Then it kind of kicks back over north of Fort Lauderdale, right? So fortunately, that area was not hit. We did see some people and overheard some people that were there longer, or they had plans in the other areas, and like us next to a Chicago Bears fan at the bar, and they were in town because they had a friend's wedding that they were going to, but I forget where it was, maybe Fort Myers, but it was in an area.
You knew he was a Bears fan just because he was just looking sad.
He had a Bears hat on. He sat down next to us.
Yeah.
We had a great kicker for the weekend. No, but it was beautiful, and I was happy to find this bottle for the first time. I've never purchased this Heaven Hill. This is a Bottle and Bond 7-year. It's a more recent release. Sorry for those that are watching on video. Looks like we're losing the connection a little bit. So much for 1 gig down and 100 meg up. That's cool. But it's a newer product. I believe this was released. Do you have notes on this?
Yeah, this was
2019, I believe.
Yeah,
They
this was
upped
released
it from-
2019. They used to have, so the previous Bottled and Bond that they did was a 6-year. And for those that may remember or don't remember, Bottled and Bond has to be at least 4 years old. So it's double the age requirement for bourbon.
Mhm.
It has to be at least 4 years old, and it has to be bottled at 100 proof. Can't be higher, can't be lower. Has to be exactly 100 proof, and it has to be aged in a government bonded warehouse. The 6-year Bottled and Bond used to retail for like $15.
Yeah.
Really?
And then they discontinued it, and then they brought the
They aged
7
it for another year, and they charged to take $60 or $50 more.
40,
Well,
I think, originally.
when it originally came out, it was a $40 bottle 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, you're looking at this. Heaven Hill obviously is a giant. I think it's, if I read correctly, family owned since 1935, correct?
Beautiful facility.
Beautiful
And they're
facility.
growing.
It's great. Yeah, you did. When I was down there back in February, I want to say. I was down there with
Yeah.
the Burn guys. Shout out to Burn by Rocky Patel, Indianapolis. They're doing a barrel pick down there for Elijah Craig,
Which is
barrel
made
proof,
by Heaven Hill.
which is made by
Yeah,
Heaven
which,
Hill.
yeah.
And so we were down at their facilities, and they were building like 6 new rick houses down there, if I remember correctly. I mean, I was like, good God, these rick houses are just like we went from like Willett rick houses to like Heaven Hill rick houses, and I'm like, dude, they're like double the size of what Willett had on their facility.
Yeah.
And are there on their grounds. And that I've always been a big, Heaven Hill fan, all their products. Larceny. Larceny.
We know how much you like Larceny.
For those
Larceny,
that watched the show before with Tyler on.
Yeah.
No, that was
an after.
No, we
hours.
talked about it on the other
Yeah,
one, though. He was
yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Didn't
that
we
was
do
good night.
a Larceny one of the times you were on too?
Larceny
Yeah.
barrel proof. I
Barrel
think.
proof.
Yeah, the last time. Yeah,
Which was this is still one of my top 5 favorite.
So this one, just Nate, I know you got, I think, yeah, you looked up similar to what I looked up here, but I'll let you go back to like the mash bill and everything. But on the back of this, I like this branding on this because again, if you Heaven Hill on the front, first of all, Bottle and Bond under U.S. government supervision, we can kind of recap what that means for those that don't know that. Family owned since 1935, 100 proof, 50% alcohol, Kentucky straight bourbon, whiskey, and bold. And underneath it doesn't just say 7 years. This bourbon is 7 years old. It's. I just like the way that
you got to spell it out sometimes.
I just like the way they just put a statement on there. It's not an age statement. It's a statement of age.
Yeah.
It's just like, this bourbon is 7 years old. Like, they should have put a period on there.
Right.
Something on
Exclamation point.
there. Yeah. And then it says the best of the great Kentucky bourbons. This Kentucky bourbon pays tribute to the earliest days of the distillery's history, when in 1939 it released Heaven Hill Bottled in Bond. The namesake brand quickly became the #1 selling bourbon whiskey in the state of Kentucky. Still today, the craftsmanship poured into this bottle by the same founding family meets exacting standards first set forth in the Bottled in Bond Act of 1897. This historic offering reflects on the company founders' firm belief it takes patience and perseverance to make something of great quality. So again, I like the statement, on the front and the back. I like the it's kind of got that like almost like parchment paper look. It's not just a blue and white. It's got this like nice colored blue on there, used throughout, and then it's got the old school, circa 1935 picture of the distillery, and it's just done really, really easy, but also it's just a nice, clean presentation.
Yeah, kind of classy.
Nothing fancy about it, you know what I mean? But it's kind of elegant and it stands out.
Yeah.
Sometimes simplicity is best, right?
I think so. But again, it's got a lot of information on there. It's, it doesn't do the mash bill or anything like that. But I mean, it does talk about the Bottled in Bond Act, which we talked about that just as a quick recap. That was a way the government came in because there was a lot of, it's kind of, in a sense, I hate to say this because of what's going on now with our industry, but with the cigar industry, but it's like the FDA kind of back in the day. It's like, you can't just put anything in a bottle and call it, bourbon.
Right. Yeah,
and they were making some shit stuff. They were going across the country, and before anyone could really get back at these people selling these bottles of quote bourbon in those unlabeled, not labeled bottles, and people getting sick, and there was like, this isn't bourbon, you know what I mean? But they were on to the next town. I mean, there was a bunch of people that were basically scamming people, and they were coloring it with all sorts of shit, whether it be tobacco spit or the rusty nails we hear about and stuff like that. So motor oil. So it was things like that the government finally came in, and we talk about the E.H. Taylor bottles. Colonel Taylor was a big proponent of that as well. And again, that's the treetop level, the all is well type thing. I'm sure there's a lot of corrupt money going through all this shit and all, you know what I mean? Like,
right,
I'm talking about the highlighted, like, hey, this was a good thing back in the day. You know what I mean? You had to do a bottle and bond so that you made sure that you're, at least if you got a bottled and bond bottle, you knew that, hopefully, again, government, but you hope that it was legit what they were saying and what the standards were.
Right.
Yeah. So, we talked about this, came out in 2019. It specifically came out October of 2019. So,
why is October important?
Because this is October right now. So this product's been out exactly for 3 years.
Hell yeah. Isn't that hilarious?
Tough to find.
It is tough to find in the state of Ohio. In the state of Ohio, this is a $50 bottle, but it's one of those where, people wait in line for the truck. And if this one is one of the bottles being delivered, like, people are going to pick it up,
You're going to go fast.
Yeah, you're going to pick it up at the counter. It's not going to be on the shelf, most likely.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. You guys want to take a guess at the mash bill?
Well, Bo just put it out there.
Shout out to Bo.
I got a good guess.
God damn it, Bo.
Go ahead, Nate, for those audio listeners out there when I post this. And
78% corn, 12% malted barley, and 10% rye. So it's got quite a bit of corn content.
Give Bo a little credit here. Coming
He's
in
on
swinging
point.
there.
He's on point.
Yeah,
swinging there for everyone else.
And then Sean Anderson is like, corn's on there twice. Yeah, that comment should be 10% rye, not 10%.
Yeah, well, and now we've called you out, Bo.
Come on, I was counting on you, Bo. Come on, bro.
It's
fail army.
Different corn.
It's different corn. It's blue corn. Who does that blue corn whiskey? Is that the Texas?
Is that Balcones?
Yeah, Balcones.
Yeah.
They're Texas, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good stuff, actually.
Hook 'em, baby. Red River Showdown this week. Is that what they call it?
Red River. Yeah.
Red
The
River Rivalry.
rivalry.
Yeah.
Rivalry.
There's too many fucking R's in that.
Alliteration.
They used to call it the shootout, and then they thought, maybe that isn't politically correct anymore.
Yeah.
So it's the rivalry.
Can't offend anyone here.
Oklahoma got smoked last weekend.
All right, before we go down a sports rabbit hole.
Oh, they got smoked by TCU.
All right, what do we think of this bottle? Trying to keep us on point here.
You know how long this is gonna go. This is never
can.
short with me.
Jesus.
Shorter with you than if Jack was on.
That's true, Jack. Yeah.
Or Hector.
Or hey, that still might be one of the longer ones.
Was it Hector or Jack that was in when we went 4 hours long?
That was Hector.
Okay.
That was Hector. Well, how long did the one with Jack and Miguel and Jake go?
That went a
And
while.
I was sitting
that was
peacefully in the
that
back.
was a long night too. Yeah. And we had Jake on recently remote, and that went a long time. Yeah. Yeah, we have some that just kind of trail on there.
I think the correlation is crown heads and
I think I'm
Espinosa.
gonna stop plugging in the laptop camera here, and just when the battery goes out, the show's over.
Right. it might help us out in the long run.
Mid sentence. No, what I really think is.
Thanks for watching.
All right, we're still talking in here. No one's listening. Cool.
That's probably how it would go.
Yeah,
It's exactly how
it's actually how it goes sometimes when we're still recording.
Right.
But Nate, what do you think of this bottle? You said you have never had this. Is that correct?
That's correct. Never had it until we right before we went live.
So, and I had again, I don't believe I've had this. I may have had a sip over the years, with being friends with Jake, and but since 2019, he's not been local. So he was usually the guy who would bring in like some, I don't call this random, but he would bring in the ones that were tougher to find, whether they were inexpensive or expensive. But I will just say that this was a great one for me to pick up down on vacation. I basically, I put it in a Yeti, took it out to the beach. You know what I mean? I had a few Miller Lights, in my makeshift cooler that I made with trash bags and ice, and my duffel bag.
Forgot to bring one, or they were sold out.
I didn't bring one. It's fine. We made it work. Kristen had her mimosas and her Yeti and everything, and I had this. And it was nice because, again, when you're on a beach, right, and it wasn't too hot, 85 degrees, but
that sounds perfect.
My left leg sunburn would beg to differ that it was not hot, and we were in the sun. But it was very pleasant on the beach. Again, just neat. And then I had it, obviously several other times that weekend. But Nate, what do you think for the first time here? And I know you had it before lighting up the Warhead, right? You had a sip or no?
Yes, I did have a sip. Right. Yeah, it was right before we went live.
Okay.
And then right before we went live, I also lit up the cigar. That's why I'm a little bit further than you guys on the cigar.
That's why we got a second one.
Yeah. All right. That's why I brought one of mine from home. No, I actually really enjoy this bottle, especially on the nose. It doesn't come across like 100 proof on the nose. It's very pleasant. It's got this nice little sweetness, but also a little bit of mint on the nose for me. And then on the palate,
you just get mint on the nose, but
on the palate up front, it's got this kind of thicker, heavy sweetness. Not necessarily like a caramel or butterscotch, almost more like a honey on the palate. And then on the finish, that's where the spice kind of kicks in a little bit, which I'm actually I'm pleasantly surprised that the finish has as much spice as it does with it only being a 10% rye mash bill. Like usually with something that's a 78% corn, you initially think it's just going to be sweet, front to back, nothing but sweetness. But no, it's actually it's a very complex whiskey. There's a lot of different flavors going on with it. Obviously with a bottled and bond, you're not expecting something to be super smooth because it is 100 proof. But it's got a nice viscosity and flavor up front, but the spice that you get on the finish, it's not an overwhelming spice. It's not like a super cinnamon type of finish.
Yeah.
It's just enough to let you know that like there is some complexity to this and different layers of flavor going on. So it is a really good bottle.
Tyler, what about you? You said so you've had this, right?
Yeah.
But just with Jake, you were talking about Jake.
Yeah, we've had it a couple times,
but you picked them up when you were in New York.
Yeah, I bought these when I was over in New York, and I was just at a random
state of
store. Yeah, state of over like western part of the state. And I was just like looking in this random liquor store, and I was just like, I wonder if they had anything different than we don't really see in Indianapolis or whatever. And if I do see it in Indianapolis, it's marked up like stupid. So screw the fucking
What's it marked up to?
What, when I bought it? Or
No, when
what
you
do
say
they
in
sell?
Indy.
Well, you can't even find it in Indiana.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
I've never seen it in Indiana. I would imagine it's probably like 150 or something stupid like that because
Jesus.
their liquor stores suck.
You can find stuff, but
You can find stuff.
going
It's just
up.
expensive. It's just the market's stupid over there. Unless you got a couple that you can go to and you're like, okay, they're not gouging me ridiculously.
You got to go off the beaten path sometimes, I feel like, in
Yeah.
Indy and other places. Same thing with where I was just at. I mean, not kidding. Like, you go like a block off the main A1A,
Yeah.
and they were more reasonable.
I mean, it's weird. It's like actually like the best liquor store in that area. It's actually over by Jake, in my opinion. And they're actually like, it's in a really pretty ritzy area.
It's in
And
Carmel, right?
yeah, in Carmel, the
Yeah.
Vine Table.
I've been there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great liquor store, and they got a ton of stuff that you can get there, and then they don't really gouge you on anything, which is really nice. And which you would think in that kind of higher upper echelon area, you know, they would gouge the rich.
Both saying $65.99. I don't know if that's what he's getting at for the bar or if that's what he knows where you can find it.
I think that's what I'm pretty sure that's what I paid for when I was in New York, was 60, 65, something like that.
Okay. So what do you think about the bourbon though?
But I like it. Like, you know, it is 100 proof, so it's not going to be light by any means, but it goes down really smooth. The spice towards the back end of the palate and the finish, it lingers a little bit, but
yes,
it's
it
nothing
does.
that's really like super aggressive by any means. It's really nice that it lingers around like that. And you just really can't complain about it. I mean, and then, you know, you do get that butterscotch kind of note when you take the puff out of the cigar and then you drink it. You're just like, wow, that really kind of does bring out that butterscotch, and it's kind of wild. And it's just super pleasant. I really enjoy this bottle. I think 65 is more than fair for this bottle all day long.
Yeah, again, I mean, that's what I picked it up in Fort Lauderdale, 65. I did find it at, I think it's Maccabi is the cigar shop down there. That was a more reasonably priced cigar spot. I would definitely recommend if you're down in the Fort Lauderdale area. It's small. It's like the size of the tinderbox. Honestly, it's like maybe pushing like 900,000 square feet. But imagine half of it. Like when you walk in, it's the whole left side is a bar, and then you have the humidor over here along that wall, bar seats, a little bit of, like, not much walking area, and then they have like bottles up top and.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can. They had it for $59.99. I thought about getting a second bottle to take home, and I didn't because I thought I'd find it at the next place. Didn't, but
What a mistake that was.
Even at that price, like
Bo says his cost is $37 in it, and for the bar,
if I saw
not bad.
If I saw this on a shelf, whether it be 60, 65, I would still pick it up for that price.
See, I
don't think that's unreasonable.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. And the store I was at when I bought it down south, it was a touristy spot. Everything was overpriced, and I'm not going to get into that. I would not recommend the spot unless you don't care about what you're spending, because they did have a hell of a whiskey selection. Oh my God, the bar was insane. And they had a lot of, like, they had all the E.H. Taylors. They had everything. I mean, it was like, but like the Warehouse C E.H. Taylor was $3,000. I mean, it was something. The Weller Green Special Reserve is a fifth. It was like, I don't know, 175, but like certain things, it was just like
That's some Indiana bullshit. That's what we got in Indiana. It's just
that's some Louisville bullshit. That's worse than Louisville. Because
but Bland's was $199.
No, but when we were in Louisville last year, we saw the Weller Reserve at like 100, 125.
But I think it's again state by state. Like, so
you told me that earlier. I'm like, please tell me that was like the half gallon or something like that.
Like, but I think they were pricing it, you know, according to what they can get, whatever they can get for it. You know, so they take it as, you know, if I get asked for it, like I said, the Rowan's Creek that I had, that was ended up being a mistake at the bar. They were selling Rowan's Creek for $99.99, and I was like, that explains the price at the bar, because apparently, you know, even though no one orders it, that's apparently what they think they should charge for it. But Heaven Hill, this one, that's why I got it. It was 65. I thought this bottle, not knowing as much about it, I thought, okay, 65. At the very least, this is probably like a $30, $40 bottle, is what I thought in my head, not knowing. Good to hear that it's $50 in the state of Ohio based on the state regulated prices. It's funny that, you know, you read that about the 6 year before this, and that was like a $20 bottle. But you know,
that's kind of weird how that
I mean,
jump went up so
they
high.
probably.
But how long ago was that between like them
again before 2019?
Yeah. So like, but when did they kill the 6 year?
2018.
Yeah, the year
2018.
before.
Oh,
That's what
so
I
it
mean.
took a year off to
Yeah.
age it next year, I guess, essentially.
But again, it could be something completely different. Anyways, I think it's a reasonably priced, bottle.
Right.
I was really pleased with it because just a neat sipper. Again, I mean, it's 100 proof. It's 7 years old. You'd hope that Heaven Hill's not putting out a piece of shit out there, right? So they stand by it.
Even their low end, like their $20 Bernheim bottle,
Yeah.
which is like it's just a normal weeded bourbon, but it's really good for the price point. I can't complain about Bernheim at all. And then you got Larceny, then you got Henry McKenna, which we want to talk about price hikes when.
So
with
that's
Henry McKenna
interesting.
10-year.
Henry McKenna, though, being a 10-year product, I don't know the mash bill on that. That's a 10-year bottle. This is
And bottled and bond.
And bottled and bond. I mean, it's part of the bottled and bond series, yes. But it's interesting. If this was sitting next to Henry McKenna at the same price, now that I've had both, I would get this. This is smoother. This is it's got a lot of flavor. I always thought that Henry McKenna, when it was like $30, even when it went up to $50 in the state of Ohio, now it demands a whole lot more. But this I enjoy sipping on more than what I recall. I haven't had Henry McKenna in probably 2 years, but
ever since it went to $85 a bottle.
Well, you can't find it anymore.
You can't find it.
I've had a bottle in my liquor cabinet for like 3 years waiting to do it on a podcast.
You guys haven't done that on the podcast yet?
No.
Really?
So I'm debating like,
Wow.
maybe I should just drink the damn thing.
Go ahead. I think that this, though, it especially I haven't had a puff on the cigar a whole lot in the last several moments. I think that this is getting back to what I was sipping on, down south, is because I didn't smoke many cigars. You can't smoke anywhere other than the beach, basically, or a cigar shop. But this is smoother. It does have that. You said honey butterscotch. I get a little bit of that. But I really do enjoy. So if you've listened to me talk about some of this stuff, I don't like it when it tastes like corn water.
No.
So this being, what was
78%
corn. This is what I really enjoy about this. It kicks off as it hits my palate, like it's going to turn into that. And then quickly that it mutes that. And then all of a sudden now you're getting some of that vanilla, butterscotch, honey. You're getting into that. You get just that hint of what you were talking about, mint, or what, like not quite like eucalyptus, but it's like a little bit. And then I'm actually getting a little bit of a Kentucky hug. I also had heartburn most of the weekend from all the shit that we were drinking and stuff. So that could be part of it, that I'm still feeling that. It's like right here. So it could be either a Kentucky hug or acid reflux from 5 days on vacation. And
that'll happen to the best. That happens to the best of us, bro.
Well, when we went to Louisville, we kept drinking margaritas and going to taco places. So in Florida, did you go to like a bunch of barbecue or something?
We did a little bit of that. Just a quick, Sean Anderson asking about my sunburn leg. No, I put sunscreen on everywhere, but I think that first day on the beach, I must have like rubbed like the knee to the ankle. I must like cross my legs or something while I rubbed in it was a spray suntan shit, sunscreen. But I think I must have rubbed it off, and the sun was like basically like from like it's like right here. So it was like basically coming down on that. So like the right side and the left side, this shoulder got a little bit more.
Yeah.
But then like the next day, like I was like, man, like even like moving my foot, like my ankle, I kind of felt like, man, that kind of hurts. And I looked down and I was like, oh,
It's like beet red.
here we are. So like the
son of a bitch.
next couple of days, I was that old man with like a towel over my shins. I was like, I also wear jeans all the time, which if you guys know me, that's a big running joke with a lot of my friends is that I never wear shorts. So again,
I don't think I've ever seen
you wear shorts.
well, that's part of the problem.
The only time I've seen him wear shorts is when he's mowing the grass.
Yeah, well, I
Were
was
you
wearing.
sitting on that patio back there and just while you're smoking a cigar,
Don't make
drinking?
it
and
weird.
like, watching
No,
him
it
mow
was,
the grass?
no, it was actually when I came here to set up for a show.
Oh.
He's out mowing the front
I gotta
lawn.
squeeze that in whenever I can.
Right, yeah.
Oh yeah, he's giving all the soccer moms in the neighborhood a show
All right.
because he's wearing his cleats and gym shorts,
All right.
and that's it.
Now we're getting somewhere.
No, we're not. Sean, what do you think of this Heaven Hill 7-year? And anyone out there, I know Bo, you've chimed in, but if you guys, if you have anything,
I like it a lot. It's compared to last week's, it was not much of a burn at all.
Yeah,
Got a
well,
nice-
last week was 126 and a half.
Got a little bit more of that if you
Yeah.
want to just sleep well tonight.
Yeah, this one is very tasty. I'm glad you got it. Appreciate you grabbing it, Tyler. And yeah, I'm enjoying. I definitely get the butterscotch. And at first, when I took the first few sips, it tasted kind of young to me. It seemed kind of
On the finish,
yeah. Did you get that too?
I got that
What
too.
was it?
Like
Kinda young.
like on the finish at first, at the first part of the finish, it kind of feels like it's going to take that turn to taste like a young whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But overall, I
doesn't.
think it's excellent.
Short and sweet. I like it.
Well, I'd looked up some tasting notes on this, and on the nose they say vanilla, caramel, aged oak, and then
Aged oak.
a trace of leather with even fainter hints of tobacco and honey.
Well, I feel like smoking a cigar with it's gonna
Right. I think I got the tobacco part.
Cancel it
Yeah,
out.
we got that down.
We got that
Cancel
down
it out.
pretty good.
No wonder these two pair well together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then on the palate, they say seasoned oak, spice, savory
shit.
tobacco, and leather notes balanced against graham cracker and butterscotch.
Graham crackers.
So I can see a little bit of that. And again, all of us being, at least in the garage, and a lot of the listeners out there are cigar smokers. So I think maybe that's one of the reasons that, when I was sipping on this, and again, I on the beach the first day I had it, I can't remember if I might have had a small pour before that, but I smoked a BS Gold. And after that, I smoked a Laranja Caixa. Sipping on this, and obviously when I ran out, because I didn't bring the bottle down to the beach, but I switched over to Miller Lite. But when I was sipping on this, if you're going to describe a whiskey, especially from one of the biggest in the industry, right, or best well known, or whatever you want to call it, Heaven Hill, if you're describing notes as leather, tobacco, some of those things, I think a lot of us are going to gravitate and be like, that's my wheelhouse here. Like,
Yeah.
whether or not I'm smoking a cigar or not. And I think that might be one of the reasons why I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
I think they're
Well-
full of shit about the graham cracker.
That
That
Well,
makes no fucking sense to me. but-
you and I also kind of nailed it a little bit on the finish. This one said medium to long, cinnamon spice and caramel sweetness.
Yeah.
Both of us said the spice. You said a little bit more sweetness on the finish than what I had gotten. But then it starts talking about mingles along with cherries and vanilla, and then a little bit of dryness.
So I think that's I think that's just a little, like you guys talk about sweetness on this one. Maybe again with my whatever acid reflux, like maybe that's a little bit of that slight tartness they're talking about, the little cherry, like that sweetness, right? A little tart. So then you have a little bit of that with that vanilla you're talking about. So I did want to put a comment up here with Sean Anderson. And
Sean is active.
he's active here. Yeah, and everyone knows what Kristen was saying. Hey now. I would think a bourbon that tastes like tobacco and a cigar at the same time would be redundant and counterproductive. What do you guys, Tyler, what do you think about that? I mean, as far as that comment, if you're sipping on this and smoking a cigar, is it redundant, counterproductive, like Sean's asking, or how do you take that? Would it be better on its own, or would it be better with a certain cigar, Warhead VIII, or another one?
I don't know. I don't think you can have too much tobacco.
Says the cigar rep.
That's a good answer.
Well, I mean, that's honestly. Dude, you're talking to a guy who smokes like 5 a day. I mean, I'm just like,
Well, if you're
Again,
mean,
these
if
are
it's got
the-
tobacco on top of tobacco, all right, sweet. That's
I would
So again, these
cigar
are
right
notes saying these are notes. These are not like, this is not the redundant, it doesn't taste like tobacco, right?
there. You got this tobacco note though. I mean, that's
Tobacco note, but I mean, again, oaky. I mean,
No,
think there's some
the answer is
similarities
no.
there.
I don't think it's. I don't think
Okay.
it's redundant or anything. I'm completely fine with it.
How about you,
This
Nate?
guy got
well,
notes of
I think
tobacco.
I think
And
if
Sean,
you're-
you bring up a good comment. I
Yeah,
mean, I will say
absolutely.
that.
I think if you're someone who doesn't smoke cigars, that tobacco note may be hard to identify because you don't know what that's supposed to taste like.
Yeah.
But being like, if you are a cigar smoker, if you were just drinking this like in your in your basement or somewhere where if you weren't smoking inside, but you were a regular cigar smoker, you might be able to pull out that flavor. But like I said, even in some of the reviews I looked up, they say that that's, faint and, just a hint of that. So it's not a very pronounced note.
Yeah, if it was like a pronounced, like dominant note of like tobacco or
Yeah.
something like that, you'd be like, okay, yeah. I'm like,
But-
why am I smoking like where they filter this to a tobacco leaf or something like that?
But if you are
It's not a bad
drinking,
idea.
but if you are drinking this with a
Nice
cigar,
talking.
Yeah, we're talking here.
if you're drinking this while you're smoking the cigar, obviously if you taste tobacco, you're tasting the cigar that you smoke because that's what you're burning. But that then just allows the sweetness and other flavors that are in the whiskey to stand out more because you've already got the tobacco flavor with the cigar, but now you're focused more on everything that's not related to the cigar.
But you also like with some of those tasting notes and stuff like that. I mean, some of those tasting notes are stuff that you get out of cigars too.
Yeah.
So,
So I
the
think
cigar.
that's one of the reasons why they go so well together. I think
Yeah.
this is something that, again, I think that the two industries, especially as we've gone forward here, is that I think there's a lot of related flavors, right, between the oak and the char.
I mean, how many cigar blends are distilleries doing now? I mean,
So that's
it
my
seems
point,
every
right?
distillery's
So,
doing
well,
some sort of
or-
cigar blend or whatever.
or aging,
Cigars
obviously we
in
talk
ba-
about the
in-
virgin oak barrels being used on bourbon and then they're sold to everyone else. And we've talked about it when Nick Perdomo was
Yep.
on. That was a great interview. He's been
Those are-
doing it for a long time.
those
A
are
lot of
Buffalo
other
Trace barrels.
a lot of other companies are doing it. It's obviously there's some similarities or at least some I guess unique characteristics that are shared by the two products. So I would say, Sean, I think that's a great question / comment is to those that like it. I mean, maybe this wouldn't pair well, but I will say this though, Sean Anderson, that if you're not smoking a cigar, and I don't know if you've had this one or not, but this would be one that if you like cigars and you're sipping on a bourbon, this would be one that you might enjoy to Nate's point, wherever you're drinking it. But if you're not smoking a cigar with it, you might actually really enjoy this bottle based on what we're talking about and commenting on, is because it does have some of the notes on it. And,
Sean Anderson, is that that big son bitch from the 10 event
Mm-hmm.
that brought like 8 bottles with him?
Yep.
Hell yeah. What's up, bro?
Big
Well,
son of a bitch.
he brought
What's up, you
Shout
big son of a bitch?
he brought 8 bottles, but we killed all of them on Friday.
Oh my god, you remember he kept like pushing that on Eric?
Oh
Just-
yeah, I was there.
Good
That was
dude.
great.
Good dude.
Great guy.
Can't wait to see
Great
him again.
guy.
Yeah.
He's been on the show as well.
Beautiful.
All right, as we unless you guys have more on this, but I think we can kind of roll it into the rating time here, as we're just over an hour with the rating time. This is where, if you guys are listening for the first time, we do 3 ratings. 10 is the best, so it's out of 10. We do it on the whiskey tonight. It's the Heaven Hill 7-year bottled in bond. We do it out of 10 rating on the cigar, which is a 601 La Bomba Warhead VIII. And then the pairing, we've talked about it, kind of going through all of this, in the first part here, but we do a summary here and give it some ratings for you guys out there. I know that we had some comments out there that, if I can find some time, which I should going forward, at least through the colder months here, is I want to try to capture this point and do some snapshots on some of our social media with the rating time, so that, if you guys don't have the time or want to put the effort into listening to the first hour and a half and the second hour, but you want to hear some of the ratings, we're going to try to do that a little bit more going forward. So hopefully we'll have some success with that. So check that out. Sean Wilkinson in the garage. He is drinking and smoking what we're drinking and smoking. So what do you think?
I'll go for the cigar. I love it. I was kind of apprehensive at first because I usually do like medium full, but this is amazing.
Yeah.
I'll give it a 9.
Wow.
I'm definitely getting it again. I'll probably pick it up if I come in this weekend. The bourbon or the Heaven Hill was really good. I give it 8.5. It's a little young. I mean, like a little youngness kind of.
7 years, not enough for you?
No, I want minimum 10, man. No, I'm kidding.
Jesus.
No, I like
Can't
it. It's
please
just
fucking anyone anymore.
No, it's got to be at least 18.
I'll do
I knew
8.5.
someone was going
But
to
I'm
say
still
it.
going to give it a good rating.
Didn't think it was going to be Nate.
I'm still going to give it 8.5 though, because I think it's still pretty. It's got some great flavors, and I enjoy it. The pairing, I kind of like the full. I mean, to me, it's kind of a lighter bourbon, so it's. And then you complement it with the fuller cigar. I think they go pretty well hand in hand together. I'll give that an 8.5 as well.
All right. Means strong ratings there. Yep. Tyler, how about you being the guest?
For sure. What do we start with first?
Whiskey.
The
Start with the whiskey, yeah.
'Cause that's how it's.
Oh
whiskey, cigar,
yeah,
pairing.
there you go. It's whiskey.
It's all right.
Cigar,
Jonathan Aaron says, Decimal, you got a drink. For the
Um,
listeners only.
yeah.
Wait till he gets to mine. I'm gonna get Jonathan drunk. Oh wait, it's sober October for him. He's not drinking.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. We'll see those fucking comments to see if he's not drinking or not.
Yeah.
No, so the whiskey, I love the balance that it has. It's like a perfect, like any time of the day for me. I think I can crack this open at the beginning of my drinking habits, and I can finish it with my drinking habits.
Goes with your breakfast.
Yeah, it goes good with breakfast. Nice bacon and eggs with this.
Maple syrup and waffles.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, I really like this. Like I said, I'm a huge Heaven Hill fan, and it was really cool to go tour their facilities and stuff like that back earlier this year. And I've always had an affinity for their product. So this, I would definitely give it a. There goes my knuckle sandwich. 9.2. I really dig this bottle. And like I said, just the fact it's so well balanced, it's nothing aggressive. It's great any time of the day. I think I could really enjoy this thoroughly a lot. I just wish I could find it more.
So yeah, I agree with you on that.
Cigar, Warhead 8. So when it comes to Warheads, I still prefer the 6 more.
Shorter Figurado, right?
Shorter Figurado. But I just love Figurados, and that's like my shit. So
you get some different complexities from Figurados just based on the sheer size, the ring gauge changing around.
But I definitely do enjoy this. I enjoy this project whenever Eric releases it. The last however many I've been smoking. I think I've been smoking this project since 4. I don't think I had anything before 4. So since he's got another one.
You don't want to smoke the knuckle sandwich as a gift?
Oh no, I'm gonna smoke that after I smoke another Bomba Warhead VIII.
What a monster. Attaboy. I think I know what his rating is. But no, I would definitely give this
10.
I'd give this
10.
I'd give this a 9.1 for sure.
All right.
I'll definitely Hector's in his zone right now. I think I can't underestimate that enough. The stuff that Hector's putting out and your listeners and you guys will be able to smoke some of the newer stuff that'll be shipping soon. Like our Espinosa 10 year and our Chef Special Knuckle Sandwich. Hector is in his element right now, and he is knocking everything out of the park, and really, really happy with everything we're doing. And I'm really looking forward to see what people's responses on that other newer stuff's going to be.
Probably helps now that he's retired from his other job.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So now he's dedicating all of his time to Espinosa.
Warhead's definitely knocked out of the park once again. So bravo to him.
How about the pairing?
The pairing, I would give this. I think they balance each other out immensely. I don't know if the spice in the La Bomba is making the finish a little bit more spicier or not, or the Warhead. But I guess I was right either way. But I solid 9. I'd go with the 9 on the pairing. I'm really
92919.
Yeah, I know this is. I love the cigar. I love the booze, and we put them together. They are both fantastic.
Nice. Nate,
It's better than whatever Miguel brought that day he was on the show. His like French cognac rum thing he did.
Yeah, you didn't like it. I got it.
I was not. That did not do it for me, bro.
I got it.
Shout out to Miguel.
We still have that bottle up there on the shelf. It's empty, but
I'm gonna
we
tag
still have
Hector in this.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I'm just messing with Miguel, of course. No, known him. I feel like I've known him long enough. I can do that. But no, I really enjoyed this pairing, and yeah. Steven, what about you, sir?
Nate.
Nathaniel, what about you, sir?
No, I like that. Save me for last. All right. No. Yeah. So on the whiskey, kind of my ratings are a little bit similar to Sean. I'm an 8.5 on this bottle. I think it's a really enjoyable bottle. Like I said, if I saw this on the shelf, and whether it was 50, 60, 65, like Steve paid for, I'd still pick it up.
Tyler paid 65.
Tyler paid 65. You paid 65, and down in Florida for it.
Tyler brought this bottle. I drank mine.
I would honestly
give him credit.
I would honestly, if I found a place that would sell this by the case, I would probably buy a case of this. Just because I just thoroughly like, how Jake likes Eagle Rare.
Yeah.
to
And
like a
Steve.
stupid level,
Absolutely.
which was a phenomenal product. I actually saw a guy a couple nights ago get it in an old fashioned. I felt like Jake
upset
would have
you.
smacked the
It
shit
upset
out
you.
of him. It upset me too because I love it too. But this is something. This could be, if I could find this, you could sometimes find Uber Rare. I would go out of my way to make sure this is always stocked. But Nathaniel, back to you, sir.
Yeah. So 8.5 on the bottle. On the cigar, I'm a 9 on this cigar. Like I said earlier, when I do my top 5 each year, it's always new cigars.
Yeah.
But I also try to exclude limited edition because I want my top 5 to be stuff that people can get anytime, year after year, hopefully. If I open that up to any cigar that came out in that calendar year, this one would be in my top 5. I really do enjoy the cigar. I've had several of them now. You guys criticize me for busting one out of my little 601 Maduro travel case.
What a
but
beautiful case that is.
that
too.
is a beautiful
It's
case.
a great case.
But no, I really enjoy this cigar, and one of the reasons why I pick some of these cigars up at the tinderbox is some of the whiskeys that I've had before, it just brings out some of the sweetness that I wasn't expecting in that whiskey. So that's one of the reasons why I'd like to have this cigar on hand. And that leading into the pairing, for me, this kind of did the same thing I was talking about earlier with that Russell's Reserve 6-year rye. It brought out more of the sweetness with this whiskey, and it made it taste a little bit richer, like a butterscotch type of sweetness. So for me, I give the pairing a 9.5.
Okay. Wow. As you guys are commenting, I do want to put this on there. Sean Anderson was asking about the Patreon thing. We'll do it on the intermission a little bit, but I do want to comment. If you guys ever get some weird charges from that, just let me know, or, send us a screenshot of it, or just contact patreon.com. But he said he thought he got charged double on that. So I didn't see, I need to look, but the amount that was transferred was not higher than it had been, that I was really thrown off by it. I'm surprised. So if you have it, just let me know. Give me a screenshot of your bank account or your transaction or whatever. We can look into that, because we don't want you guys
with your bank account numbers, routing numbers, social security numbers included, please.
What street you grew up on with your mother's maiden name and your first pet that you owned. No, I would say so. The whiskey, the Heaven Hill, I'm really impressed with this. For the second time having this, I really like this. If you can't get it for 50, 60, 65, I want to say higher, but this is just a solid bottle. So, I give it an 8. I think that it's just a really, really good bottle. And
is there a limit that you would pay for this? Was 65?
So here's the thing. I will equate this. I would put this in, to Tyler's point. If it was readily available, I would always have this as a daily drinker, along with, if I could always have it or get my hands on it, Eagle Rare, same thing. This is up there with that as a daily sipper that I don't feel like it's necessarily the most complex, but it's very, very enjoyable. I've enjoyed it now twice. And the vacation thing was not necessarily like the Utopia thing, I
was thinking of that.
But Kristen was saying, why don't you just buy a bottle? I bought a pint, 375 of the Buffalo Trace. The last day we were at the store when I bought that Pure Kentucky.
I didn't know they did it in that.
So they do, and it was like $25 at the last liquor store we went to.
So the same price as a normal full size bottle.
Just about.
It is,
Right,
but then again,
but
for,
still, that's
for
actually
a
not
fifth,
that's not that
for a
price
fifth
tag.
down there, you're looking at $60-$70. So I was like,
that.
all right. So I drinking the bottles down there, I was just like, well, I don't want to try to have this half bottle
and bring it home,
cork it, throw it in my checked bag, and they're like, well, this is an open container, so I was like, I'm not going to do that. So I bought a fifth of that because I know I like it. I haven't had it in a while, and I enjoyed it. The last day and a half we were there, that night, and before we went out, I put that Buffalo Trace in a coffee. You know what I mean? It was just one of those things, which is very good, by the way.
Kentucky coffee.
The cigar, if this cigar is, it sounds like it's up your alley, I would give this an 8.5. This is, again, 6x60 is not for everyone. It smokes differently than around 6x60. It doesn't feel like it. I mean, you're looking at 56, 58 at the most, I think, as far as a smoker's feel, as far as holding it, smoking it, everything else. This doesn't feel like a 60. So
It's nothing obnoxious.
Yeah,
like, that's the thing that gets me with 6x60s is just like it's not comfortable for me personally.
So this 6x60 also is a rectangle box press. This is not a hard, 90, 90, 90. This is in a sense of like, it's a little flatter, if you will. There's still 90-degree angles. I understand but I'm just saying it's not a square box press, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
More of a rectangle. So it's a little bit more comfortable. I mean, honestly, if you turn this cigar in your hand, then put it in your mouth, it will be a little bit, I think, more uncomfortable because it's taller.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's, I think, doing it in that rectangular box press that's very, very popular. Padron, my father, a lot of these other companies are doing these.
Or Espinosa Habano box press.
Espinosa, like
box press. It's a lot more.
Saying that more industry, this is something where, the biggest one.
I might as well plug our stuff.
I know, but it's like, I also like, when Ricky was with CAO, like the flathead is, I mean, that's a square box press, right?
Yeah,
so it's a
much.
different smoker feel. This is more along the lines of some of the more traditional, rectangular box press. So it's a little more comfortable to smoke. The pairing, I actually will give this a 9, the pairing. I think that they go really well together. Nothing is overpowering. I think it pairs up. Maybe it is some of those hints that we were talking about that we had a question from Sean Anderson on. If you have a little bit of the redundancy of tobacco and some of those flavors that you get from cigars a lot, the leather and stuff like that, the notes, I think they pair really well together. I think I was a little nervous. Again, when I drank this last weekend on vacation, BS Gold, medium-bodied, all Nicaraguan Plasencia product. I had the Laranja and the Caixa size. Again, Nicaraguan with a Brazilian wrapper, but straight medium as far as strength.
Yeah.
When you said, let's do the Warhead 8 with it, I was a little nervous. Very much surprised, and I've enjoyed this pairing a lot. So I think that speaks volumes to both the cigar and the whiskey, is that surprisingly enough, when you see La Bomba and when you say it's, full body, this is the Warhead. I mean, like, it's like in your face in the advertising, and the cigar is pushing full body. But with the bottle there, nothing got overpowered tonight, and I've really enjoyed this pairing.
I think it's a perfect testament to two manufacturers, Heaven Hill and Espinosa Cigars, that understand the balance aspect of blending in a sense, between bourbon, tobacco. I think we both of those manufacturers do know how to like make sure something's not overly, like, even our most full body stuff like La Bomba. Like I said, sometimes it scares me, but when I do smoke it's I'm not turning green, or I'm not just tasting nicotine, or I'm not just tasting power with no flavor. There's flavor with the power.
Both of these are very full flavored.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Including the bottle.
Yeah.
There's a lot of flavor going on, and I think that it goes really well together. So
I was not as nervous about this pairing as you just said. You
never had this bottle.
I hadn't, but
There's
because I had smoked this cigar with a rye.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it paired so well with a rye.
Yeah, you kind of went balls to the wall right out the gate,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Oh, we're just doing 100 proof. It's gonna be just fine."
Well, now granted, that rye is only 90 proof, but it's still a
Still a
95.5 rye.
Yeah.
Because those two paired so well together, I was not that concerned about having a bottled and bond product with this cigar.
Nice. All right. With that being said, we're going to roll through the intermission here. We might have a question here again. There was a mention of OnlyFans, which I'm not sure what that's about. But guys, I do want to thank you very much. Just to roll through the sponsors as we roll out of this is you guys, patreon.com/bourbonbs podcast, or one-time Venmo at Bourbon and BS. We had a great contribution. So you might see some upcoming as we get towards the end of the year. You might see some differences in the set. We want some feedback on that. But we're going to look towards that, and we thank our I know he doesn't really want to be named, but we want to thank him for the donation. on the Venmo here. So you guys can contribute monthly or one time if you want to buy us a bottle or whatever it might be. Also, I want to thank Tinderbox of the Easton. They do carry Espinosa cigars, including the Warhead VIII, which will be featured next week with Eric Espinosa himself.
Prime rib dinner, baby.
Prime rib dinner. Almost sold out. So, again, 3 spots remaining. Altadis USA, normally they'll give us the second cigar of the night. Tonight, we're all Espinosa. But Altadis USA, great portfolio. And, again, Josh Bentley has moved on to some key accounts. But, again, big supporter. He was on recently on the show with his father-in-law. And, again, that's what the community is all about on this podcast. Hope you guys enjoy it as much as they do. And Be a Cigar Company, the silver is made by Espinosa, medium to full, and it's going to be peppery, all Nicaraguan. And the gold is, again, made by Plasencia, and it's medium-bodied, fantastic, both of them. We appreciate all that. We just put a new order in for the Be a Cigar Company for the silvers today. You left, and I said, hey, did you get that all squared away? He's like, shit. Brian's like, I got a text.
I got that text. I was like,
I'm glad I said
shit.
something because you guys didn't think about it.
Nope.
Normally I'm communicating with Eric or Hector, and you guys are like, oh, we'll just take care of it right here. And then I was like,
that went right over my head.
Jesus Christ. But guys, thank you very much. Make sure you like, share, review, and everything else. And then if you like the swag, look into it. Buyjack.com, byjack.com/bourbon and BS for the 3/4 sleeves that we have on, some hoodies, T-shirts, everything like that. Jack Taranio said, why didn't Tyler get one of those shirts? And Nate responded back in the comments, he has all of them.
Yeah.
He's trying to support the brand that he's working for and representing tonight, so I can appreciate
He's got a
that.
La Bomba shirt. I mean, come on.
I could have actually
Got the
wore
Espinosa
the red 3/4 sleeve. It would have went with the hat.
Yeah, but you're here for another reason. You know, you can support the podcast other times. So
next time. I'm sure we'll be on visit 8, 9, 10. You know,
happy Whiskey Wednesday. We're gonna round out. We're gonna do a quick intermission. If you guys are listening live or the video, stay tuned. If you're listening to the audio, make sure you click both parts. Enjoy your week. Thank you for joining us.
But yeah, you know, you got 3 spots available. I think Jonathan Herring and his lovely wife should travel from Houston all the way up here to go to that prime rib dinner. You know,
I mean, Jonathan, if you're in the mood, you can have someone else drink your shots there.
Then I mean, he could stay till Saturday and actually watch a good college football program actually win. You know,
Be great to have them back up here. You know what I mean? And I know they could use a trip to lovely Columbus, Ohio. In October. You guys don't have fall down there in Texas, so if you
I
miss
need to come down and see Johnny. I need to go see
beautiful leaves.
I've never been to Houston.
I haven't either.
I've been to the airport. When I went down to Nicaragua, I connected through Houston.
Nice airport.
Great airport. I was actually very impressed with it.
Nice.
Austin's a great airport too. I didn't even know there was an airport in Austin until when I went to Vegas this year for the trade show. I saw like AUS as like my connecting flight. I'm like, are they sending me to fucking Australia? They go to Vegas? Oh, like, what kind of flight
makes
is
sense.
Well, what kind? No wonder this flight, that bad price
Can I
wise.
get another round of drinks here? We're flying over the goddamn ocean here.
And then I was like,
Twice.
and then I just looked it up and I was like, oh, Austin, Texas. I'm like, thank God. I'm like, holy shit.
Austin, Massachusetts. Fantastic. Gorgeous.
Not bad. Not bad.
No, it's good part 1, guys. If anyone has any comments here for the intermission, you guys need to hit the head or anything like that?
I'm good. Sean Anderson did send me a screenshot. I don't know if he sent it to you, but
No, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, he sent me a message, so I'll look into it. Sean, if it did go through, we'll talk, okay? Thank you for being open with that, and don't wait for, I appreciate you saying it on the podcast, but if you ever have a question about that, we would absolutely take care of you for that. Absolutely.
So Nate mentioned those travel cases, the 601 blue ones that you guys got, the Murcielago and the Laranja Oscuro ones. Which one's personally your guys' favorite design? I think that Oscuro one is badass.
I think the Laranja Oscuro is probably the one that pops the most because you have multiple colors. Like, so the 601 blue, and are you guys going to do more of those?
It might be in the plans.
Yeah, that was a great set. If you guys if you have an Espinosa account near you in the brick and mortar realm, these were, you got 10 cigars of whatever one, 601 blue. You got 10 601 blues.
Yeah, like 601 blue
Laranja.
Toros.
But the price, I don't know what the shops near you did. We did a basically straight markup on it, Keystone markup. And so
what,
it
$90?
was
yeah,
$89.99
Yeah.
for any of them. 601 Blue, Murcielago, and then the Laranja Azulejo was the best deal because it is a higher price. Oscuro, excuse me, was the best deal because that is a higher price cigar.
Wasn't that a Robusto though?
It was the Robusto Extra.
Still higher than those.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the Robusto Extra is a half-inch shorter than the Toro and 2 ring gauges bigger than the Toro.
So
very cool, very cool. And we should probably talk to you guys about doing a BS Silver one. But
well, that customer I talked about earlier, that almost every time they come in,
next order that we just placed.
I'll send it with Hector.
Yeah, let's talk.
I'll tell you about Hector.
The customer.
We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, right. There.
We came up with the Murcielago Toro the last time, or like 6 years ago when he was here for a primary dinner.
Hey, everything gets birthed somewhere, right? Birthed.
No, that customer I was talking about earlier that always gets like 4 of the Murcielago Rubitos. He kept buying, like every time he came into the store, he was buying one of those travel humidors.
So we have about 6 or 8 of them from Dante.
Yeah.
Because he brought them back in, and we're going to be doing some giveaways on Thursday with some of those as well.
Awesome.
Oh, that's sweet.
So, he bought so many. He's like, I don't need this many. And he just, I mean, he talked to
those
Brian.
Cases are cool. I mean, when we got sent the message about that we were doing those, I was like excited as shit. I'm like, dude, these things are sweet.
They're fantastic.
It's kind of like, it's not like a hard plastic either, but it's like that nice cloth kind of.
It's a soft shell.
Yeah, it's a soft shell.
Soft, hard.
And it's got a little.
It's like a corn tortilla. You know what I mean? It's like a structure to it. It's not like a flour soft one. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Still.
Corn tortilla, dude. When I was growing up, I always got that shit stuck in my gums.
All right.
Like whenever I was eating that shit, like it would just like be bam right there.
Shut it down.
I was like, it's such a pain in the ass. I had to eat soft tacos for a while.
Do I need to mute his mic?
Yeah, maybe. Blur him out on the camera here.
Trust me, my public image is already ruined. As many times I've been on here, good God.
Here we go. Well, and you're controlling the part 2 here. I'm going to turn it to you.
Yeah. I think it's going to be really cool and interesting.
All right. You guys ready?
Sure.
With the knuckle sandwich on deck.
Yep.
I'm going to cut that now.
Yeah, let's cut that before we get roll. I bite everything, so fuck it.
I have a cutter if you want to borrow
one. Biter.
You haven't met the right people.
Well, it's funny. The last time you were on, Tyler, we featured the knuckle sandwich Habano, and we had the Maduro as the backup cigar as well.
I had more Maduros.
But then we talked about it like, oh, next time I'm on, we'll feature the knuckle sandwich Maduro, and then here we are smoking the Warhead 8. So
we got plenty of time.
Yes, we do.
Nothing but time.
We got nothing but time.
All right. Feel like I should hit the head, but I'll probably do it mid-conversation when I'm bored.
Or when I'm talking, Steve's go to the bathroom.
Keep it going. Just keep it going. Just keep it.
All right. Pour more. He'll be fine.
Get Hector off the stage.
Get him out of here. Shut it down. It's like Gordon Ram, or it's like it was a bar rescue guy.
For those who are listening to the intermission, one of the funniest moments that I've had, 240 episodes, awkward / funny, is we had Tyler and Hector on, and there was a moment where I was like, I'm go around, to the side of the garage, I gotta hit the head, and we're still recording. So I go outside and I literally just turn the corner. I'm sitting, it's dark out there, right? And here I am just taking care of business. And all of a sudden in my right ear, it's like, hey, we should probably shut this down. Like, Jesus, man. Like, who's on the show right now? Is everyone here?
It was me and Hector. That's all that was left.
And I'm sitting there, okay, can I finish? And I think I finished.
You never touch a man when he's hanging a wire.
I came back inside. I think then Tyler used the side of the house. It's like, geez.
Yeah, we were
Occupado,
all
man.
We were feeling good that night.
That's good.
I'm like, dude, I think we got like a 20-minute drive to our hotel.
Bro, we gotta go.
We gotta get this thing before we get too out of control. That was a great time, though.
It was a good night. Hector had a great time.
Oh yeah.
All right. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 240, part 2, Beyond the BS. And we just finished up part 1. So if you're listening on the audio, please click back to part 1 to listen to that about the Espinosa. It was the 601 La Bomba Warhead VIII. Still have that, right?
Yep.
All right.
Nailed it.
And we also are still sipping on the Heaven Hill 7-year. This is the 7-year bottle and bond. Came out in 2019, and we've enjoyed that as well. We did some reviews and talked a lot about Espinosa Cigars, this project, the Warhead, and then also this bottle as well, and had some great conversation, great comments. If you guys are just listening live now, hopefully you guys are on the comment feed on Facebook or YouTube. We're trying to monitor both. Facebook's the best way for us to see your comments. I've been scrolling through. I haven't seen a whole lot of YouTube, so hopefully if you're out there, what is it? Bourbon Basement normally gets involved on the comments on the YouTube, so hopefully they're having a good night as well. But tonight, part 2, Beyond the BS. We always do this. It's a little different than a lot of the bourbon reviews, the cigar reviews. This is where we try to set ourselves apart. Not for everyone, definitely for a lot of other people, including people that don't even smoke cigars or drink whiskey. And this is where we actually talk about like a life topic. And so I like having Tyler on. He knows the show. He's been on the show several times. And not only does he come with cigars from Espinosa, he brought the bottle, which is always, greatly appreciated. That's very generous of you. Thank you very much. Hopefully you can expense that. Jack Tarani, if you're still listening, he should be able to expense that. It's advertising. Hopefully you saved the receipt, which you probably didn't.
Oh, dude, that was like 2 years ago. I bought this fucking
$65. But
me, Jack.
No, it's be on your payroll. Let's keep it above board here.
Right.
But no, so tonight, the life topic, Tyler actually brought this, and it is Greenlights.
Greenlights. We're going to talk about some Greenlights today.
Greenlights.
So,
and let me describe what I put on here, and then you can take it, because I kept it brief. Tyler's here with us to chat about life's Greenlights and what that means to each of us, how to find them, and how life can also throw us red lights.
Correct.
So I kept it very brief because I think it's not just necessarily, I know what the inspiration was behind it. And you can bring some of that into it, but also just the conversation of, green lights in life and what red lights mean. And I think that what you're talking about, you didn't want to do necessarily, like you said, a report on what brought this on. But
right.
I think
correct.
It's going to be heavily influenced by that. And I can appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. My time on the road, sometimes, you can only listen to the same music over and over again, or say you can follow the same podcast or whatever. So only so much until you need to find something else. Right. So, I was actually, during one of my travels, I was listening to Dr. Joe Rogan.
That's not.
And
let's not make it worse here.
So I was listening
maybe
to
an honorary doctorate.
He's got
to have an honorary, doctorate from some school at this point, right?
At some point, you would
doctorate in communication.
No, I'm a big Joe Rogan fan. I think he's a very talented individual. Stand-up comedian and all that.
Slightly more listeners than we have on our podcast.
Slightly. He revolutionized the podcast industry.
Yeah,
and I think he's super influential to a lot of people.
Yes.
And so I was listening to one of his podcasts, and I do it once in a while, depending on who his guests are. And I found a podcast with him and Matthew McConaughey. And Matthew McConaughey is forever always been like one of my top 5 favorite actors of all time. I think the dude's super talented. He can do whatever he puts his mind to, and he knocks it out of the park 99% of the time. And so during that podcast, I thought Matthew was a very interesting human being, and someone I respect so much, especially at his craft and stuff like that. I like to hear how people's minds, tick and stuff like that when they're super successful like he is. So during that podcast, he mentioned that he recently wrote a book, a memoir essentially, of the first 50 years of his life, called Greenlights. And he during the interview, Joe was like, dude, you got like this thing, like when I'm sitting here talking to you, they're FaceTiming each other because it was during COVID and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. It was about a year or so ago. If you guys are looking back, you can YouTube it, you can look on Joe Rogan.
It's still before Joe Rogan took all this stuff on Spotify interviews wise.
But if you YouTube it and you can say, Matthew McConaughey Greenlights, one of the top hits is the JRE, which is Joe Rogan Experience podcast. That'll show up on YouTube if you guys are interested in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And he
Jonathan Aaron just says recommend the audiobook. He reads it. That's where we're getting to.
Yeah. So so Joe was like talking to him, and he goes, man, if I met you at a bar, I would tell you straight to your face that you got this like whiskey wisdom thing. And that really piqued my interest. He goes, dude,
People say the same thing about this podcast.
of course. Yeah, no doubt. Until later on. And so he was like, dude, like if I like met you at the bar, I would like, you would say some like wild shit to me that I never thought I would hear at a bar or something like that, or expect to hear. And I would go home thinking about what you said at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like after our conversation's done and we, go our separate ways. So I ended up downloading his audiobook. And it's like the first audiobook I've ever actually sat down and listened to like completely even started.
Do me a favor and tell people how they can, because I know not everyone does audiobooks, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
You can do this.
There's an app called Audible, which is like Amazon's audiobook app. And it's like 99 cents and the book's free on there. So you can do that. And that's what I did. I downloaded the app. I downloaded the book. It's like almost 7 hours of like him, and Matthew narrates it, which is brilliant. I mean, I wouldn't have listened to it if McConaughey wasn't narrating it, but just because he's just McConaughey, right?
He's got a good voice.
He's got a good voice for it. And so so I was driving throughout this great state of northern Michigan. I kind of want to separate northern Michigan and normal Michigan because we don't mention
you feel like you have to.
Because I feel like I have to. That's a Buckeye.
But not the UP.
No, not the UP. They're talking like
gorgeous.
Traverse City and
also
and Petoskey. Shout out to Ernesto's and Nolan's up there. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna spend a lot of time on the road. I could probably knock a lot of this book out of the way. So I started listening to it and I got hooked. And the way just Matthew like just thinks mentally about like his processes and how he keeps his roots and his values and how he appreciates, the simple things in life almost, and how he designates stuff as like green lights, yellow lights, and red lights. And he pretty much preaches in the book. He's like, this is not a how-to book by any means, but this is a book about, how to find more green lights or how to, look at a red light and realize it's a green light that's disguised, possibly.
Okay.
And just like the certain situations that he describes is very interesting. And I kind of related to a lot of it, like it's like in my job, I go to a new place I just hear about or something, or another rep tells me about, hey, you should check this guy out or something like that. I'm like, okay, cool. Call him up, tell him I'm going to stop by, the retailer or whatever. And, I get there, we talk about the product, and the guy, ends up telling me, you know what, I really want to bring your stuff in, but right now it's not the right time. That sounded great. Shout out to Sean's driving. And
got a heavy curb.
And so like, the guy tells me just right now is not the right time for me to bring on a new brand. Completely understandable. At that point, that's a red light. But it's up to me almost to end up creating that as it's me to put the work in and the determination to end up trying to make that into a green light.
We got to decipher. Is that like just a kind of a brush off in a polite way of saying no?
And it could have been. At
the moment, it definitely was.
At the moment, it was. But it's me, not giving up on that and me using my work ethic and my determination to end up convincing this guy, look, yeah, I think you got some shelf space. So at least bring in a couple lines, start small.
Yeah.
And we can build this throughout and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of things in that book that I ended up personally like getting a lot out of it. And it was a great way to think about how someone ends up, their thought process and stuff like that. So Matthew, I mean, he's just an interesting dude in the first place.
He is.
Like grew up in Texas. His dad played for Bear Bryant at University of Kentucky. And he ended up playing for the Green Bay Packers essentially at some point, which is like, I mean, I've never even thought that was like, that's who his dad would have been. Right.
Right.
But, and you hear like how he grew up and the values that his parents instilled in him where, yeah, he may have got the belt, because he earned that belt whooping or whatever. But at the end of the day, after that belt whooping, his parents took him to their favorite, like, burger and ice cream joint after that, and by the end of the night they all can say I love you at the end of it, and move on and learn from those mistakes, and he got instilled those values. Not saying that's like how you're supposed to do it or anything like that, but it was just interesting how he's like, yeah, I got a lot of red lights because I messed up in life and stuff like that, but by the end of the night it ended up being a green light because I got to go to my favorite spot. I could tell my parents I still loved them.
It's very interesting.
Like, it's a very interesting way of perceiving life and perceiving how, certain things could end up, starting out as bad, but, at the end of the day, it's building character in you, and it's building that morals and values and stuff like that.
So in preparation for this, I didn't listen to the whole thing because we just talked today about this, right? It's one of those things that, but I will encourage everyone, obviously, to check it out. Jonathan said that he also listened on Audible, I believe. And while I was, getting ready before you guys came over, I on YouTube, the first like 10 minutes or so is available on YouTube as a promotion for Audible.
Yeah.
.com.
Smart.
But it was, you listen to that, and there is a lot of, like, from the very beginning, he was saying a lot of things you're talking about. Is like, this is not a memoir like the traditional one, like
right, yeah.
where you're in the age of retirement and end of your life and reflecting on it. It's kind of, he's big on this journaling thing where you are.
For 36 years, he kept a journal. Like, this is like, and he kept this journal throughout his successes and his, maybe, and when he kind of took his little hiatus because he was done with the rom-com game and stuff like that. And he was even saying like that was a red light in his life because he took a chance to turn down like millions of dollars worth of rom-coms because he's like, I don't want to be just known as the rom-com guy. I want to get into more serious stuff and stuff like that. Because
I think he also talked about with that, like, he started out like once he kind of got pegged as a rom-com guy, like
that made him uncomfortable.
He was doing it in order to be able to make a very comfortable living to where he then got to the point where he could then do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So like once he was successful,
it's not like he hated doing rom-coms. I'm sure the money was great.
A lot
he
of
probably
fun.
liked doing
John
it.
C. Reilly said the same thing, right? The actor John C. Reilly, like, you do one for them, you do one for yourself. You do, and that's what I think Nate.
You do something for the paycheck, and then you do something that you really want to do. May not be as high profile, may not get as much attention, but you do something that you actually want and are excited to do because you've done some of the other stuff to put yourself in a position where now you get to pick and choose what you want to do.
Well, and sometimes you get to that point where now you have a little bit of that base also where you can invest in yourself, right? This is any job you have. If you're making a good paycheck, and we've talked about that on this podcast before, sometimes you get caught in that dead end of like, I'm just working for a paycheck. I don't want to leave this job. I don't want to leave this position because now I have responsibilities for myself, or I have expenses, or I have a family. I have people relying on me. And it's like, if I leave this now, I can't afford to take care of myself or other people.
And he also
more consistently, or more common, is I can't take care of my family to give them the lifestyle. Doing that, I think it's great. It was interesting to listen to the first 10 minutes or so just of that. And you said it's like 6-7 hours of an audio book. And for those that still, obviously read and listen, actually sit down with a book. It was really cool listening to him talk about it. Obviously, being an actor, and he's done very well, it's entertaining to hear him, the way that he delivers it, right? It is very much himself. So being a memoir or being his words, it's cool to hear him deliver that because it's entertaining,
but his personality take place along with the words
and
he
it's
wrote down.
Yeah, it's not fake. But he did talk early on in the first 10 minutes. I'll kind of just highlight on that is that, his upbringing and, his family, and talking about how, he grew up in a family. He was the youngest of three. and
I sound like a stalker almost because I feel like
again, and we're talking about the book a little bit. We're not doing a book report. That's what Tyler didn't want to do, but it's interesting because he grew up in a family that it was some of the quick things. It's not it's a little bit of tough love thing, but it was like, his father wasn't there when he was actually born. He was gone, or he was traveling. He wasn't there. Right. And it was funny just to hear some of these old school type of remarks, when he talked to, or when the father talked to the mother, it's like, whatever you do, don't name him Kelly, I think it was.
Right. Yeah.
And, comments like that. And when, learning to swim, it was, his mother basically not threw him in, but it was like, all right, you're going to go into this body of water. And it's like, if you make it back to the shore, you'll learn a lot, type thing. So there's like,
or you're going to go down the water for 40-foot waterfall.
Yeah, there's a waterfall, right? Which, today's age, child services be called. And,
Right. It's definitely a different type of
but he made it back to the shore, as he says, and he learned a lot from that. And so there's a lot of those things that, again, like to your point, Tyler, it's like there's no right way to do it. But one of the things that really stuck out with me on the first 10 minutes, and this was, 2-3 hours ago, I was listening to this, and it really, he grew up in a family that said, I love you. There was this aspect of the family that it's like, no, even with some of this tough love, whatever it might be. And again, this is not to really dive into parenting skills. None of us here on this table are parents at this point. Obviously we all had parents, and my parents were still together. I know, Nate, you had a split home, if you will.
Yeah, my parents split when I was 6.
But you've had some great stories with your dad, your stepdad, your mom, and everyone else involved. And Tyler, you haven't shared as much of that on the show before, but it's something that, you even hear now with relationships and stuff like that, is that there's a lot of information out there that even in your own personal relationships, we talk about communication a lot on this podcast, but even in just like those personal relationships, there's a lot more, I don't want to say just affection, but there's a lot of stability and almost responsibility, in my opinion, when I see these things on social media or my own personal experiences, that you hear a lot of the times that you wish you would have told your parents or someone that passes away. You wish you would have told them how you really felt. You wish you would have, a broken relationship. You wish you would have actually expressed more of it. And just to hear that little bit of it on that 10-minute excerpt of the beginning of the book, as entertaining as he can make it sound just because of his delivery. And if you are a fan of Matthew McConaughey, you'll probably enjoy it. If you're not, I don't know how you're going to feel about it, but saying I love you and showing just that little sense of affection, reminding people how you feel about them, and the core of it, the relationships seem to be better. Because not only are you reminding the other party, whether it be your kid, your parents, your significant other, or your kids, if you have kids, that will be a resounding thing. When I talk to like my mom on the phone, we don't talk all the time. I talk to her, and I don't know if it was her or I that really started this, but there are times like when we hang up, that was a voluntary thing on my part. I don't know if she inspired me or not, but saying goodbye is I love you.
Yeah. I do the same.
I'll talk to you later. And I think some of those things, in my current relationship, with Kristen, we say that a lot, and we both come from divorce. We come from relationships that have been successful and then not as successful in a sense, and growth and everything like that. And I'm not going to include her too much on this because I don't want to do that and step over boundaries there. But I know that in this relationship with not only my mother, but now, with my girlfriend, is that we say, I love you a lot. It's not like, really gushy or any of that stuff that some people aren't, but it's literally just
closing
you
to
say it. You say it more often, because there is, and I think sometimes as you get older, it's, with my mom, being, in her 70s, I don't want to have that feeling where I wish I would have said it more. Does it really matter? Probably not. But to you, to that other person, the other party, it's small, and sometimes it might even catch them off guard. But if you're saying that, it's almost a reminder to everyone involved that again, you appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
I think that's important.
Does it ever become cliche, like where it no longer holds the same meaning because say it so
that's
often?
when you just don't say, you don't make that.
It'll fade away if that's the case. Yeah.
You don't just say that to everybody.
True. Yes, I agree. But there are times where I've actually had that thought where, every time I get off the phone with my wife, we each say I love you, and it's like you say it so often. Does it?
Well, you mean it though, right?
You do mean it.
Right.
Yes.
What happens if you stop saying it?
Right. Yeah. What happens when you stop saying it? That means like everything. You're going through like Tom and Giselle right now. Which you have to make go through that. What? That could have ended right after retirement. I don't know. I got my own.
Nate, what do you think? If you stop saying that, if you were Tom Brady, no.
If I stop saying that, I'm pretty sure at some point within about a week, my wife would sit there and be like, "Hey, how come you no longer say this anymore?"
Right. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
she would catch on to it. It's like, no, like it's just in the phone call. Like I still say I love you when we're at home or when you're leaving for work or I leave for work, but like, on the phone call. But then again, I mean, I still say it to my parents whenever I get off the phone with them.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, so there you go. Charlie.
There's like 2
Creedmoor.
people I say that to on a regular basis. My
I
mother
know, and I
my father.
appreciate it all the time.
Right.
No, Charlie Creedmoor says, watered down I love yous loses its impact.
well, that's what I was asking. Like, I mean,
But the certain people that you say it to, they understand that it means something.
Well, once again, that's why I asked, if you stop saying it or if they stop saying it now, like at first you may not realize it, you know what I mean? Because you're just busy. But I think it's an indication there. It's like, again, it's not
I bet
your first time, like, I love you so much. No, I love you. Hang up first.
Right.
You hang up first.
Right, yeah.
No, I love you more. Like, it's not like that.
No,
I mean,
no,
I'm not
it's not
saying
like
that. Yeah, it does lose its impact to a point, but there's still an impact there. And I think there's an importance there. And I wasn't trying to like necessarily like the green lights, we're talking about. That stood out from the first 10 minutes of listening to it is that one of those things that came across is, again, with Matthew McConaughey doing the green lights thing, it was a little bit of a slight of like, the tough love part of it.
Yeah.
But then he includes that almost in passing, at least at that part. And you would know better. Again, not doing a book report, but it's like the fact that he said that I grew up in a family that says, I love you. That is something that not everyone goes through. And it's one of those things, we talk about, the Bomba being like a World War II thing.
Yeah.
I grew up in that. And, I'll tell you that, my dad didn't say that a whole lot.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, after he's passed, I know that we both appreciated each other through the ups and downs and like, that whole thing. But if it's only tough love, and I always think back to the show, that 70s show, you know what I mean? It makes fun of it to a point, but it's like, he knows how when I tell him, like, Chris and I have been watching the Goldbergs. If you ever watched that, it's a show based on the 80s, show, right? Yeah, but it's on the 80s. And we started watching that, and it's so funny because you look back at that, and it's
got
like
that guy from Daddy Daycare with Eddie Murphy.
Well, yeah, so
he's the dad, right?
But it's like he even had this subtitle thing, right? And it's like, he called like, "You're a moron." And it's like, "I love you" in the subtitles. You know what I mean? It's like part of that. So I don't want to really like, just hone in on that part of it, but I thought it was worth mentioning that you grow up in a family, no matter where you're at with your kids, with your significant other. I'm not saying you have to tell all your friends that you love them or anything like that. You know what I mean? But it's like, there is a little bit of, there have been people in my life, even just like friends. And it's like, yeah, man, love you, bro. That's it. You know what I mean? It's something where it's, in the world today, I think that it's not necessarily a negative to show a little bit of appreciation for the impact those people have in your life. Whether you say thank you, whether you say, it was really great talking to you. I miss you. I miss hanging out. And even saying something as simple as, love you, man.
I think with friends,
like Charlie says, 70 show. I love you, dumbass. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think when it comes to friendships, like on a regular basis, you're probably not telling each other that, that you love each other, but it's when one of those parties is having a down moment or down period and, things aren't going well, they're struggling with something, whether it be, work, relationship, or just their personal life. And then the other party being there for that person, to kind of be a shoulder to cry on or an ear to listen to, like that other party being there to help lift that person up. Like that's one of those moments where friends will say it to one another because there's something impactful about the actions that are taking place in that relationship. But those friends wouldn't say it on a regular basis to each other.
Yeah. You know, I see like, you know, some of these comments between like, you know, Charlie, you know, he's on there. Sean's still on. He says, yeah, he has to run. Bobby Hirschman chimed in. He was on the show not too long ago. Bobby's a big fan of the show and a big part of the community. And he made a comment too. Again, we'll move beyond this. Find it here. He said, wait, all families don't say I love you. And there were some comments after that. And, you know, he said the whole thing. When you don't say that and something happens, God forbid, you know, it's one of those things.
Right,
you know,
yeah.
again, I think this is
Exactly what Jess was texting me.
I think there's a level of effort there. We talk about this a lot in this part 2 of the podcast. Also, is that, you know, it's a lot of times it's that continued effort. Relationships are a big part of that. You know, same thing. Career-wise, job-wise, what have you done for me lately? You know what I mean? It's like you have to continue to put the effort in. And one of the reasons I think that there is such a failure in some relationships, careers, jobs, whatever it might be, is because you rest on your laurels. You rest on the comfort.
Yeah.
And the comfort will start getting louder.
Yeah.
And it'll get louder and louder.
The comfort seems like it's a bunch of green lights just going off all at once, and then next thing you know, there's a red light that stops you.
You've taken it for granted to a point
Right,
where
you
you
take it for
stop
granted.
putting effort into it.
And sometimes some of those green lights are red lights disguised, kind of vice versa what I said at the
Yeah,
beginning.
no, vice versa. Absolutely.
Like, and it was one of the chapters Matthew has. It's or one of the parts of the book. It's called The Art of Running Downhill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
explain that. You mentioned that in the shop today. So
the
what
art
is
of
that?
running downhill kind of it was like, yeah, everything's going great, everything's going great in his career and stuff like that, super successful, and then boom, you know, it's like, hey, Matthew, your father passed away last night or something like that, and boom, you know, all of a sudden downhill starts being an uphill battle a little bit trying to get through that, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it just catches you off guard, and life's gonna bring that to you. Life's gonna you're not just gonna have green lights all throughout life. You're gonna get your fair share of red lights, but
So
you're gonna
get
figure
complacent.
out, yeah, and you're gonna get complacent. But you got to figure out how to turn those red lights back into green lights, and you got to appreciate the times that you have when you're running downhill. But you're not always gonna be running downhill in life. If you are, you're the luckiest son of a bitch in the world, right?
Well, sometimes with those red lights, like you just have to wait for it to turn green.
So there's a story that he tells where he just got done doing Dazed and Confused and a couple smaller things, right? And Matthew
That was
goes
his big
on,
break,
and
right?
that was like his big break when he was like 22 years old or something like that.
He was an extra in that movie.
Originally, and then
that line was ad-libbed.
And
the line he's known for.
Yeah. So he ends up like he's in his costume, and they're like, "Man, you look great in your costume. You look like," and he's like, "How about you get in this car and." You know, you think Watterson, I think his character's name was the director.
Watterson.
You think Watterson would be in? You know, he gets all these high school cheerleaders and stuff like that, and he goes, yeah. He's like, do you think he'd be interested in a decent looking redhead or something like that? He goes, yeah, sure, why not? Watterson loves all girls, you know. He's like, yeah, sure, why? I don't see why not. So he goes, okay, get in this car, this 70 Chevelle or something like that, and just
Which
roll
we'd
up.
all love to be in.
Right, of course.
Love to have in our garage.
Oh, of course.
The old school Chevelles.
Yeah. And so he
A lot
goes
better than the Chevette.
and so you go, the director just tells Matthew, he goes, just get in the car and kind of like try to pick this girl up, just kind of ad lib a little bit, do whatever you want. And so Matthew gets in the car, he's sitting there, he's like, okay, well, what would Watterson, what's my character gonna act like a little bit? He's gonna be cool.
There's a little bit of him in that character.
Yeah, he's putting a little bit of his personality into that character and stuff like that. And he ends up, they're about to, the director says scene, and that's when he goes, all right. Or he says before that, he goes, well, what is Watterson like? He loves his car. He loves smoking his pack of Marlboro Reds, and what does he love most of all? He loves girls. And then they go scene, and he goes, all right.
Yeah.
And that was completely like,
Off the
that wasn't
cuff.
even like, yeah, it was just him getting ready. And it's like, all right, let's get this.
Cool.
And that ended up launching him like to a stupid,
And it's still
became-
his catchphrase.
and that's still like that's his most like well-known phrase that he's ever said in a movie or a production at any point. And so it was interesting, just like, and then so the story I was originally going for, after he got done with that role, he had a couple smaller things that he did and stuff like that. He actually did his own like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like Resurrection or something, or some smaller variation of that story. And he was about to do a role for a movie called A Time to Kill. And
huge.
Yeah, big John Grisham production.
Huge.
You know,
Great movie.
can't think of the guy who directed it off the top of my head right now.
I'll look it up.
Schumacher, something Schumacher.
Joel.
Joel Schumacher. Yeah. So he goes into Joel Schumacher's office, and Joel tells him, "I want you to play this guy." Is there cool with that? And Matthew's like, "What about the main guy?" And I can't remember the main character's name off the top of my head, but he's like, "What about that guy?" And Joel's like, "Oh, I think you'd be a tremendous whatever the guy's name is, but there's no way the studio's going to have this no-name actor at this point, or not a big budget star actor, be the main role in this John Grisham book."
Bit character.
Right. Yeah, he was still kind of like just an extra, right?
Yeah.
Small time actor. And at that point, Sandra Bullock, who was also in that film, ended up being a big star in this movie she did prior to it. I can't remember what that movie was.
Speed.
No, it wasn't
No.
Speed. It was something I was actually really familiar with, but she got really well known for it.
Yeah.
So that was a red light. When Paul Schumacher told him practically, no, there's no way that would work. Even as much as I'd like it to have, it's just not going to work. But because of the studios, so that was a red light at that point. Well, Sandra Bullock does that movie, becomes a pretty big star, and so that helped. Maybe because she was a big star, that kind of helped him kind of get his shot to do that bigger role.
Yeah.
And because he asked for it and he got turned down, but 2 months later he ended up getting that main role because he had like this off-site shooting of it, and they're like, "You're perfect."
Yeah.
yeah, we're definitely going to use you as the. And it was funny because the original guy they wanted to do it was Woody Harrelson.
Which
And-
they're best buds.
Right, and they're very good friends, especially after True Detective and stuff like.
Which Woody Harrelson had a very common bond there with
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah,
Woody was on Cheers as Woody,
yeah.
and he was like a bit character, and then he just blew up on that.
and then he blew up on Natural Born Killers.
Right, that was a different depth there, right?
Yeah.
But I'm
Yes.
just saying, on Cheers, he was like this like bit character. If you look at the trivia, and all of a sudden, like he started gathering like some fans, and all of a sudden, like Woody became a staple on Cheers,
Yeah,
which was a giant. Which I just started rewatching, by the way. It's on Hulu.
really.
Yeah, you guys, if you
Yeah.
guys,
I grew up watching that.
It started in 1982.
Really.
Can
That's
you
how old that
believe
is.
My
that?
parents were watching that, and I was watching it with them.
I know. I'm just saying, it was one of those things. It's like you look at that show, and it's Woody Harrelson and everything else. I mean, we're going on some tangents here, but I mean, it's like you look at that, the pilot episode. If you ever watch that, go back, watch episode 1 of Cheers, and it was the whole premise was Sam Malone, which is Ted Danson, right? And he owned the bar. Used to be a former professional athlete. And Shelley Long was in there with her at that point. She was like a student with a professor. They were going to get married, and she was in the bar. And all of a sudden, like Rhea Perlman comes in for a shift, and she's late for a shift because her kids. Coach is the other bartender. You had Norm. You had Cliff Clavin was very minor in that point of the show, and it was just like this whole thing. It was all about Ted Danson and Shelley Long. And this, like, all of a sudden at the end of the show, the episode, he offered her a job because she's a student, super smart, and the professor left her for his ex-wife. And he says, "Why don't you work here?" And she's like, "I would never." He's like, "What skills do you have?" None.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Right.
it was a good show.
Good.
Sorry, Woody Harrelson came in later
Right,
as a add-on, and all of a sudden he got big.
Yeah. And so originally they wanted him to be that main character, but apparently a good friend of John Grisham's got murdered like at some point after Natural Born Killers came out, and the people that murdered his friend said the inspiration for him murdering his friend was from Natural Born Killers. So there's no way in hell Woody Harrelson was gonna play the main character in a John Grisham
A lot of red
production
lights
movie.
there.
Yeah, there was a lot of red lights.
More like
so
red
that
fl-
worked out in
more-
Matthews,
More like red flags.
right, more like red flags. And
Hard
that was
stops.
crazy. That was a crazy story that he told, and it was like, okay, so then that opened up him to possibly get that role. And after that role, he was like, it was funny. He has a quote. He goes, yeah, it was weird. Before that movie came out, I walked by 400 people that day. 4 people looked at me. 2 girls thought I was pretty cute, and there were 2 blind dudes. So
I'll tell you what, Matthew McConaughey's line, like his closing arguments at the end of that movie,
yeah,
like holy, like I still cry when I watch that part of the movie.
It's a great film.
Yeah.
It's a great film. And then he said after that weekend came out, he goes 300 or out of 400 people that I walked by, walking down California somewhere on a beach or somewhere. And he goes, out of 400 people, 398 recognized who the hell I was. They were telling me how much they loved me and everything like that. He goes, love. He goes, that's a word I don't use for everything, type deal. And that goes back to that.
Goes back to what I was saying. Yeah.
Right. And then he goes, the only 2 people that did recognize me are another 2 blind men. It was just like, this dude's hilarious.
Kevin Spacey was in that as well. He was the prosecuting attorney.
No kidding. Yeah.
He was canceled.
Yeah, we can't really
He
talk
was.
about Kevin Spacey anymore.
But no,
we just got canceled on ours.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nate.
But no, you were
Yeah, we
kind
just
of
got
right.
Shut off. I didn't like the battery is still good. I had plugged in and just shut off the feed.
But no, you were kind of right when you mentioned
Good talking to you,
Sandra
everyone.
Bullock. 2 years before that movie, she did Speed. But in between Speed and that, she was the star in the movie The Net.
But Speed actually.
Speed put her.
Yeah,
Speed
put her-
probably
The
was-
Wildcat behind the wheel.
Arizona.
But all right, so let's get up. We can go Hollywood trivia on this.
Yeah,
all
we
night
really
long.
could,
I have
yeah.
no problem with that. This could be a completely fun show.
But that was just an example of how a red light turned into a green light eventually, because he threw that idea out there. And
All right.
it just kind of let the universe work itself out, and it ended up falling in his lap as a green light.
Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, Tyler. It's one of those things. You are, when you first got on this podcast, this is going back 3 years ago, probably 4 years ago. How old are you now?
25.
25. So yeah, you were in very early 20s. You were Air Force, and you were a cigar enthusiast. I mean, you loved you were working at Right Pat.
Yep. Right, Patterson Air Force Base.
And you're doing your 4 years, which again, appreciate your service.
Of
I
course.
haven't told you that in recent years. You're no longer with the Air Force, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
But I mean, no, you did this.
It's been 2 years.
It's
been
amazing.
Over 2 years.
But it was one of those
Nuts.
things, and I think that this is something I think we can start really kind of bringing back to the people that we're talking with, yourself included. Is I'm interested to see what when you were listening to all this stuff, with the Greenlights, which I am going to go and probably I'm not going to read it because I do want to hear him talk.
Right,
And
I want to hear
listen-
that. It was like listen to his own podcast with himself
I
For
listen to
7 hours.
for 7 hours.
I
Yeah.
listen to podcasts, and 7 hours when you listen to a podcast, it's like an hour long every time, or in our case, 2 to 3 hours. That's not a whole lot of time invested. All things relative, but
It's about 2 episodes of our podcast.
all right. Yeah, if we keep doing it tonight, but it's I look at this, and everyone's had different careers. Let's stay out of the relationship thing here at the moment, personal relationships. But I still remember this where when you were doing the Air Force thing and you were working part-time in a cigar shop, what I mean, finding the time, young, hungry, you were really just, and you still are, right? You're 25 years old. So I can appreciate that hunger of wanting to succeed. And obviously being in the military, you had that work ethic you were referring to that all goes hand in hand. But it's interesting to me because I remember a time where you finally you were done with your 4 years, right?
Right.
And
I was approaching the final months of my time.
we had talked about it, you and I personally, and you were not shy about it really, that you wanted to get into the cigar industry. And one of the working with Robbie Graham down at the Stogie Smoke Stop, if you guys are in the Huber Heights, Dayton area, definitely check them out.
Absolutely.
Good friend of the show and of us. But there was you wanted to get in the industry, and a lot of people were like, yeah, man, like you should definitely, like everyone was basically by your side. You had your backing, right? You had that. So you had a green light there. Where do you go from there, right? Everyone thought you go. I thought you would go to Espinosa because you had a relationship with those guys, and Robbie had a relationship with those guys, and all that stuff. But it's like you don't know what the right move is sometimes.
Sometimes
Getting into it, you don't know, because when you have those green lights, and I want to get your opinion on this, is that you don't necessarily just need to respond to red lights. And we can get to that here in part 2. But when you have all the green lights, do you take the easy green light?
Yeah.
You talked, we mentioned like the yellow lights, the red lights, and all that stuff, but the green lights seem like they should be the easy way to go.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing's guaranteed.
No, nothing.
So when you got to that point in your career in your 20s and you were finished with the Air Force, you knew you're done, you did your 4 years, that was the plan at that point. You could have gone career.
Yeah.
And I know you thought about that.
Of course.
You did, because again, I mean, you believed in what you were doing. You saw that this is a career path, and we all know enough people that have done their 20, 30 years, and all of a sudden you're 40 something and you're technically retired.
Right.
You got a great retirement. You served your country. And in this day and age, for a lot of people, you can not double dip, but you can retire and keep working.
Right. Yeah.
But you were hungry about this and you had a green light. Why did you decide to really pursue this career, and why did you pursue Espinosa Cigars over other opportunities? Because I know that you had and I hope this is okay, right?
Mm.
Because I think that you work for a very open company, and
Right. Absolutely.
people are great, but people were interested in you, and I know you entertained some things, but you followed a green light over maybe some red lights that you could turn into green lights.
Sometimes it's going with your gut, and it was just the right relationship I've had with Eric over. I've known Eric since I was 19 years old. Since you can be a cigar smoker at 19, legally.
Used to be.
And I knew him from that point and on, and we always just stayed in touch. And whenever he was in the area, I was going to any event I could see him at. And
why?
Because I got great vibes off the guy. I saw he was a brilliant guy. He has a phenomenal product line, and he believes in it. And if I'm going to work for something, I need to work for someone I know that. Not saying anyone else that offered may have had interest in me didn't believe in their stuff, but it was just the his company has the right mentality, and it really it fit my personality for sure. And then me knowing Jack for almost just as long, Jack Tarano, and everything felt right. Everything felt right. Their factory was the first factory I went to when I went to Nicaragua. Lozona. Eric set up my transportation from Managua to Esteli. So a large portion of how my 2-week trip to Nicaragua was largely due to him.
Yeah.
And he helped me out, and he didn't need to help me. I mean, he could have just blow me off and then never say anything ever again to me.
He doesn't do that.
But he doesn't do that. He's a man of his word, and if he tells me he can help me out with something, he was going to do it. And I really felt like Espinosa was the right move for me. Just it was more based on just our relationship and a gut feeling.
Yeah.
And I really went running with it. And you know more than some other people that I had a possible green light,
maybe some yellow lights.
I saw some possible green or yellow lights, earlier this year and stuff like that. But I kind of looked at it and I was like, you know what, this might be a red light disguised as a green light. And
why? Explain that.
Just because it would
just in
been,
general, not necessarily.
Yeah.
You can translate it to other people, because I feel like we all run through that with career opportunities.
It's kind of like it could have been
things look good.
Things look good, but the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
And you don't know how good you have it until it's taken away from you, right? Or you move on from something, right?
Yeah.
So I had green lights all over with Espinosa, and I'm like, why? It didn't make sense for me to make the change, and I was 100% confident in that, and I'm benefiting greatly from it to this day.
Yeah.
And I would never change anything about that move. And it's it's recognizing what feels right at the same time, just using your head a little bit. It was a interesting time for that to pop up in my life, and I ended up thinking at the end of the day I made the right decision, and I stuck with what I felt like was right. And
Why'd you stick with it?
Because I believe in what I stuck with.
Okay.
100%. You know, I think when you believe it with your heart, like I do, it makes decisions like that a lot easier. And it ended up being, I wouldn't change that for the world currently. And I don't think I'll ever have any regret of it.
No, I think,
and it wasn't, and it could have been even the fear of change. Because if someone tells you I have no fear, well, that means you don't give a damn. Essentially. Like, I love it. I love hearing people say, I got no fear in life. Am I really? Then how much do you actually care about life if you have no fear?
yeah.
That's an interesting rabbit hole we can go down.
Well, and
Right?
have you ever been like pressed up against the wall there where you can't, pay your bills? You can't do that. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, I mean, you have no fears, but I'm not saying everyone that says that hasn't had that opportunity to feel that negative side of things.
Right.
But it's like, again, that balance between wanting to make sure that you can pay your bills, you want to be able to do all this stuff and take care of if you have a family and all that. Like your fear is that, and again, people all wired differently,
Right.
but there is a sense where it's like, you want to make sure that you have taken care of the bases, first of all, take care of yourself, but it's something where it's, your fear is that you literally will lose everything.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate fear that even people that have taken, like, they've saved money, they've taken care of their health and all, like whatever it might be, but there is a moment there where things are maybe out of your control and you haven't, no matter how you prepare for it, you're not ready for it.
Yeah.
I think, there is a little bit of the value there, that there's a lot of the value there actually, that if you're at that moment where you don't know what tomorrow brings, some people are like, yeah, it's refreshing. Like, I have no fear. It's like bullshit.
Right.
Been there.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I've talked about it a little bit before, and it kind of relates to a little bit what Tyler was talking about. My previous career, I'd been in the toxicology research industry for 8 years, and I was unhappy. I'd only been a year or so.
Shout out to Hector Alfonso for tuning in.
Is he on?
Yeah, he's on.
Awesome. I'd been working retail on the side for about a year at that point. But I'd always had this desire to be a cigar rep for a while. And I was unhappy being in the research industry, and an opportunity to be a cigar rep came up, and I took that opportunity, and that opportunity ended up being, a dead end street. And sometimes people would ask me if I regret taking that opportunity, because since that opportunity did not work out, I had to kind of start over from ground zero, go to a new company, start out at the bottom and try and work my way up. And even though that opportunity did not work out as a cigar rep, I don't regret it.
It did for a time.
It did, short time. I don't regret that decision, because it got me.
Think about the highs, though.
Yeah, the highs were good.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's a reflective thing.
Yeah,
I learned from the lows.
True.
Yeah.
I look at it as, even though that particular opportunity did not work out, it got me out of a situation I was not happy in.
So that's my point. Long term, they don't always work out, but you followed that.
Yeah.
And you gave it a chance.
I did. And, since then there have been, because I feel I'm in a little bit better place now, although with some of the events that have happened this week, that's a different story. But even though we didn't talk about that before the podcast, I'll tell you
All
later.
right. Do you want to talk about it on the podcast or later?
It's beyond.
Part 3.
But no, there have been some other opportunities to get back into that I've passed up on because I had that experience before that didn't work out. And some of those opportunities that presented themselves felt like going back into that same situation. And I didn't want to go back into that same situation just to fail again. I would go back into it if, the situation was right and, there were certain factors that fit what I thought I could be successful in. It's obviously not an easy role to be in. Typically, if you look at your cigar reps, most of them tend to be, especially starting out, they're younger, they're single. It's not the easiest job for someone who's married and has a family. There are definitely some
Well,
examples.
we know some.
Yeah, like Josh Bentley, Miguel Chodell, like they've absolutely made it work, even though they're married and have families and stuff like that. Like they've absolutely made it work. And
Tony from Crux just had a child.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Tony,
Yeah.
on that.
But
featured the Bull and Bear recently.
last week,
Yeah. Get him on the podcast. He keeps talking about it.
Yeah. We'll be in town next week. We should hit him up.
But no, I mean, over the years,
Before
I've
maybe.
kind of built my experience, working in the retail side because there's less pressure working on the retail side a little bit. But I found that I enjoy the customer interaction more than I do, working with the decision maker, that interaction.
Okay. So you learned something from it.
Yeah. To me, like working the retail. So my natural gift and instinct is to be a teacher. That's just how I am as a personality. And I get to display that more working retail than I did as a cigar rep.
Okay.
So even though I would love to be a cigar rep and, make that kind of money, I have a little bit more freedom and more enjoyment doing what I do now, working on the retail side as, a part-time gig on the side.
Tyler, I know you're answering. So Nathan asks, who carries 601 in the Dayton area? Again, I appreciate that.
Answer that.
Good. And I want to comment real quick. Hector, again, who we mentioned earlier, he's listening now. He was, this is something that I think from a very specific thing, and I want to get back to the more general. I'm glad we are showcasing that cigar, the Warhead. We're smoking the knuckle sandwich Maduro right now, but before
he smoked a second Warhead.
he brought it.
He's smoking
That
two
I brought from
in
my
a row.
personal humidor.
He smoked 2 in a row. He said, "The hell with your knuckle sandwich, Maduro, Hector. He's gonna light up another Warhead."
But I think this is something with like on the career side, and you can translate anything you want, but he's glad they're showcasing that cigar. There was some concern about Vitola, which is a shape and size for those that aren't cigar smokers, especially those that are listening to part 2 that aren't cigar smokers or even like bourbon drinkers. They listen to this part of the podcast, but I believe it is a good representation of the blend and a very comfortable 60 ring to smoke. We actually touched on that, Hector. But it's something that I think that is something where you look at it that is a potential like yellow light to your comments, Tyler, is that, you do some things where, luckily he has some freedom in his position that, yeah, there's some concern there, but
going outside your comfort zone for us, essentially.
But sometimes it is. But again, I think there's some real building up moments to that, right? So the first red light, all right. So yeah, Warhead 1, 2, 3, 4, all that stuff. 660 is not something. No matter what the factors are, I mentioned the whole like AJ Fernandez thing, the fact you can maybe do that with a mold and all that stuff. But it's like, yeah, no, we're not going to go into it with this project, but someone like Hector or someone that's in a position that they want to do something, but the powers that be is like, I just don't think that's necessarily the right choice. And again, not listening to or reading the whole, Greenlights thing that we were talking about with McConaughey, but it's those red lights. Sometimes people can just get pissed off. Like, all right, you want to listen to me? Fuck you then.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it's a big, there's a standoff there.
Right. Yeah.
Where, and I think that's really where I want to talk about, like what I want to talk about is that, you know, with you, Tyler, and Nate and everyone else out there, Hector, if you want to chime in, it's something that, you know, when you're told a no, you know, you brought it up earlier with a cigar shop that you walked into and they were like, I listened to it, you know, yeah, as a passive aggressive, but really a no.
Right. Yeah.
And
Essentially,
you looked
at the
at
end of
it
the day, it
as,
was a no.
yeah, you looked at it as like, all right, red light. All right, well, I'll swing by when I have time, but obviously they're not interested in this. Same thing with that Warhead. Same thing with a lot of things in your career. You have an idea and you aren't in charge. You're told no. That is a real hard X red light on something that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I admire about you, Tyler, is that, you know, again, I mean, we with your experience and your age, it's, again, being in the military and learning the chain of command and being in that moment, it's like, yeah, I'm not the one calling the shots. But when you hear no, when you're to that point, you have some people that are like really concerned that like, yeah, we could put money behind it, put effort behind it, put our time behind it, but we were told no. Now it's okay. Well, what are the options? I keep pushing and get frustrated and say, fuck you. You don't want to do it. I believe in this. You don't have the money. You don't have the power to do that. You say, okay, what should we do? Now all of a sudden you lose your identity completely. Or, okay, what should we do? And you have an open line of communication that's like, all right, this isn't what we're doing right now. Let's talk about it. This is why I was thinking this. How are you thinking? Like, why do you think that this is not the great Vitola for this cigar project? Why do you think I shouldn't go back into the cigar shop? Because, like, again, on that level, you know, they told you no. Spend your time elsewhere. Someone, you know, like whatever the project is, whatever the effort is, there's no interest there, and they say no, whether it be a passive way or they say, you know, like, I'm not interested. It's like, okay, how do you handle that? Do you say, do you mind if I come back in? Do you mind if I stop back? Do you mind if I, whatever it might be?
I don't even ask him. I just be like, all right, I'll see you next time I'm in town. Or something like that. And, you know, it might not be as often as my other accounts that do absolutely carry our stuff. It was a great example. I don't think these guys...
But you're at least trying to build that relationship to open that door eventually.
You're listening.
Yeah, of
You're
course.
listening to that red light. The red light is not always a hard no.
Right.
It's not always a hard pass. And even if that other party says, no, I'm not interested, that's fine.
Right.
I'm not saying break people down, whether it be business or personal or whatever, friends or whatever, family. It's not always like, yeah, I will break you down with, I'm going to break you down with the attrition. I will win you over. It's not always aggressive, but it's something there that it's like, you just don't take no as a no. And it's done with it.
Well, sometimes no doesn't mean no.
Well, that's why I said
But
earlier,
how do you come back from that? How do you bounce back?
So this is a perfect example. So I've been doing this for 2 years now, right? And
seems like forever for you.
2 years. The cigar industry is dog years, trust me. So we
This Warhead sucks.
So we I have an account now up in Traverse City, Nolan's Cigar Bar, like one of the top places you want to have your cigar brand in the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
Shout out to those guys, Dan and the boys.
been there.
Fantastic shop. Presentation of their products beautiful. They do everything right. They're super, you know, super into the stuff that we do. And you know, I went there for the first time, my first trip up to Michigan, right? And, you know, I gave them a Murcielago or something like that. And, you know, they're like, yeah, this is really good. You know, we just don't have it in the room or anything like that right now to bring in the product. Now, there's a million other ways you could take that. Based on how I read it, I'm like, okay, these guys have interest. They just don't have the footprint yet to do us right.
Yeah.
On the product. No big deal. I went back the next month, gave him another cigar. Still the same response. This is really good. We really like this, blah, 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 blah. But, it's just not the right time for us to bring in a new product. It was towards the end of the year, and they're a big tourist city, so it's kind of their slower season. They're just
when Upper Michigan, northern part of Michigan, when it starts getting cold and the lake freezes,
people get the fuck out.
Yeah, it dries up.
Right. Unless you got locals, and thank God they got a really good local stronghold too up there.
Yeah.
But and I was at it, and then it dropped down to like, okay, once every 2 months I pop in there, check in, ask them how they're doing, how's the shop doing during COVID, and just simple stuff like that. And I was on my way up to Petoskey anyway, so I was like, yeah, I'll stop in there and say hi to the boys. Even though they didn't carry the product, didn't say, give me a time frame.
It's still in your area.
It's still in my area, and I'm going to do my job, right?
Yeah.
And so I did that for 2 years, practically. And the last year before that, it may have been once every 3 months I went up there even. But I still checked in on them, and I still asked them, kept
because there's not a whole lot up in that area.
No, not really.
From the southern part of Michigan,
right?
Like
when you go from Detroit to northern Michigan, there's everything's spread the fuck out.
Oh yeah,
that's why I had 7
gorgeous
hours
though.
You're
beautiful. I love it.
It's beautiful, but I've made that drive.
Yeah.
You're literally going out of your way.
Right. Yeah.
Because to relate, I had one of those trips where I was in Bay City, Michigan, went to Traverse City, and then went to Grand Rapids to spend the night.
Yeah, that's a long day right there.
It was 11 hours. It was an 11-hour day. 9 of it was drive time.
Yeah.
And when I turn in my report, my boss is questioning me like, "How come you only visited 2 shops?" Like, why don't you look at a fucking map? And
you look at those shops that I was visiting at. I want our product in there. So fast forward, almost 2 years later, after I've been, seeing these guys, keeping in touch with them and stuff like that, I get a text message one day from Dan, the guy who runs the shop. And he goes, "Hey, we were just up in Ernesto's in Petoskey, a current account of mine and stuff like that. They were actually one of my first accounts to bring us in because they really loved the product. And shout out to those guys. I just saw them this weekend in Indian. They stayed the whole weekend in Indianapolis when they went to Barn Smoker for Drew State, Kentucky this weekend.
Nice.
Great time with those guys. I love those guys to death. They're awesome. Shout out to Alex and the boys. And so Dan texted me. He goes, "Hey, man, we just went up to Petoskey and had a 601 green up there. We absolutely, every one of us that went up there absolutely loved it." And I'm like, "Thanks, bro. I appreciate that." I think it's one of our most overlooked brands. And I gave him the whole rundown on it. And he goes, "You guys going to the trade show?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "All right, we're going to open you guys up at the trade show. Let me set up an appointment and stuff like that." And I was like, "All right, fantastic." And so that was a red light for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
That I was going to visit and stuff like that while I was up there. And they've turned out to be selling. They brought in Grandma, Orange Oranja, 601 Green, and we already expanded. They brought in Warheads, went through that, so we expanded to the normal La Bomba. And they've grown into an absolutely fantastic representation of us in northern Michigan to go along with the guys up in Petoskey. So 2 years of red lights turned into a green light. And
what's the mentality there? What's the mentality? How do you
me doing my job?
Yeah, I know
that, and that's what I'm paid to do.
Well, that's
and,
why.
And if it's a shop that I want to be in, and I want to make a point to them that I think our stuff will do well, I think we'll thrive in their shop, in their environment, and I think we have something to offer them. That is my motivation to keep going back.
Well, it's your job, but I'm saying, what's the mentality when you're told no, when you do all this and you still want to fight the good fight? When do
you give up?
Well, I was going to say it in a more productive way, but yeah.
When do you give up? You just gotta.
When do you step?
You learn how to read. You learn how to read.
Let me ask you this: when do you step back? You don't necessarily give up. There is a moment of just not giving up. Giving up sounds bad, but I get what you're saying. When do you take it as a no and you're no longer interested? Because I think that is more a relative mentality for life, right? Career-wise, personal. When do you take the, no matter what the level of a no, when do you take it as, do I need this? When do you take the rejection to a point where, like for you with an account, there's other accounts that you service, right?
Right.
When do you take it to a point where is that transition where it's like, this is no longer benefiting me? The pros don't outweigh the cons. So that red light can be motivation to a point, right?
Right. Yeah.
To,
Of course.
to this point. And again, I have not read or listened to this book. When do you take it to a point where you're just like, this no is not going to benefit me? I'm going to take my ego out of it. I'm going to take myself out of it. But everything I'm doing is a no. And they were nice at first. They're still saying no and all that stuff. Now I got to just move on with my waking moments. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I get it from a job standpoint that this is your job. I'm hearing you on that. But even as if I was your boss, it's like, just move on from that. We'll kill it around them.
Yeah.
Go to the shops around them. Go, like what, again, no matter what you're doing, but like, let's build our side of it, whether it be, again, your personal life. Like, let me build myself up no matter why they're saying no to me, whether it be your job or if you're a salesperson, they're saying no over and over again in different ways. Mm-hmm. I can take it as a personal challenge that I'm going to win. But there to you guys, Nate and Tyler and everyone listening, but and Richie Riot's listening. Is there a moment?
Coffee is for closers. I love you, Richie.
Is there a moment though that you say, I'm going to focus on me and my life and my efforts, that they don't want a part of it? They don't want anything to do with this. So they don't want anything to do with me, my company, me as a person, no matter what the venue is. But at a certain point, you're like, no, I need to focus back on me because I'm spending way too much energy or too much energy to a point that all they're doing is saying no, and all I'm trying to do is win. And now all of a sudden, you may have lost why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because all you look at it as a goal. And when you reach that goal, did you really want it? Is it worth it? Just for a little bit of credibility, just a little bit of yes?
You appreciate the wins, and the wins make you feel good.
It's fair.
And you love to get more wins than losses, obviously, right?
Well, mentality there.
I mean, look, think about it. Like Major League Baseball, you're a fucking Hall of Famer if you're successful 1 out of 3 times.
Finishing the bottle. What do you guys want? I have to go get a bottle from inside or the
Oh, we've got plenty on the shelf still.
All right.
As long as it's not what Miguel brought.
But no, that bottle's empty. That bottle's empty. Quit talking about it.
Okay.
Quit talking about it. But no, I mean, that example that Tyler gave, that was one of those. It was a no, but
it wasn't a no.
What it really meant was not now.
Yeah, it was a no, but it was a no, but it wasn't a no.
Yeah, I mean, I had.
What happens when you can't close the? Coffee is for closers. I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, right.
But I tell you what, when that customer says no,
you just got to be able to.
Again.
You just got to read the
audio, what we were on before, because I've had a couple people text me that it sounds metallic.
nothing's changed. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's more of a being able to. I don't know if it's a skill or if it's just a natural. Something that you naturally develop over time in this game, especially. But it's just it's an ability to read you got to be able to read the retailer's answer to you, and it's really and once you do it enough, you really end up learning. You pick up on it quicker. And it's just an experience thing, I think. At this point, it's just something that you
don't
can
always
read
give up, but
you don't always give up. But you end up, there's some that you're just like, okay, I can clearly tell this guy has zero anything like that. But there is also ones that are like, no, man, this is just not the right time or whatever, and type deal, or
it makes sense.
And that could be, and it could just been telling me no straight up, just doing it in a polite way. which I mean that's his fault because you might as well just tell me no, never come in my shop, or I'm not gonna that work ethic you're talking about. I'm gonna keep visiting, especially if I want my product in there. It's to me in my mind, until I decide in my mind that it's not worth my time or worth the company's time, that's when I give up.
Yeah.
And it's just simple as that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, it's just like,
I had one of those instances similar to yours where it was an account that was at least carrying some of my product, not a great deal of it, but I was at least visiting them every single time I was in their area. I didn't bypass them. I didn't skip them over, even though they weren't necessarily the biggest account I had in that area. I at least still did my due diligence, and then eventually some of the dynamics in that shop changed where they wanted to scale back how many brands they carried, but then focus more on the brands they did carry.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was someone that paid attention to them, that they felt they hadn't had that attention before,
right?
I was one of those brands that made the cut. And so because of that, they wanted to do more business with me.
Right.
And it wasn't because our product was better than everyone else.
It was because you were doing your job.
I was doing
appreciated you doing your job.
Yeah, because they felt like since I was giving them the attention when there were more no's than yeses, they were like, well, if this person's giving us this much attention when we say no, imagine how much attention they'll give us when we say yes.
You know how many shops I've opened up over my 2 years that originally told me no?
Like 2 or 3.
There's more than that. Trust me. No,
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No,
yeah, I get it.
There's an art. It's almost an art form of how sales get done, and our industry is different than any other industry.
They're a hair flip when you said that.
Yeah. Morgan Wallen thing. Yeah.
You can do it if you want to. You can hair flip it.
No, we it's just a natural read you have on the situation that you end up being in a position to be like, okay, do these guys really give a shit whether I'm still coming or not, or do they actually like I was at a retailer and it's a cigar bar and the bartender goes, man, you're here like every month. I'm like, yeah, because I do my job. And I can't.
Indianapolis, burn.
No, it was not.
He's there every weekend. Are you kidding me?
Listen, it's a mile away from how many times do I have to explain this? The place is like a mile away from me. It's convenient. And I love the people.
Yeah,
there.
You moved out there because Jake moved out there. So.
It made life easier knowing Jake was over there. So shout out. But no,
I
guess
just my point is
there's always a time where you figure it out. There is a point to where you're in your relationship with the retailer that this guy's never going to give me the time or day to really actually contribute. Or when they do give me a time, they were going to want like something stupid. Or I'm
so
like, no, we can't do that.
All right. So again, if you handle things respectfully, right? So you go in there, they say no, they say no, they say no, they say no. I'm not interested. Yeah. Like this is just like no one likes rejection.
No, I hate rejection.
But, right? No. Let's
sometimes it's understandable.
Let's say this though, Nate. Do you agree? No one likes rejection.
Yeah. I
mean, like you can look at it as a battle, turning a red light into a green light. You can be rejected over and over again. You have interest in being in that circle, whatever it is, right? But rejection always hurts. It always sucks.
Of course.
And
sometimes
there's
it's heartbreaking.
There's that mentality, and I agree with it to a point in certain circumstances, is you embrace the suck, right? Because we hear that all the time. But I mean, no one likes to be rejected.
No.
So you go through those motions, right? Where it's to a point where it's like, well, why did they reject me? Is it something I did? Is it something I said? Is it something? All that anxiety that goes behind it, right? But there is a certain point that I think that's what I was trying to get at. And I love the business side of it, the sales side of it. It's like, yeah, you never give up. You might change your direction. You might try to mirror that customer. You might try to mirror that person in your life. But at a certain point, it's not a good fit. Yeah. And I think
sometimes no come for a reason.
But I think some of these red lights, the no's, at some point is your big win is to to realize that you can't always turn a red light into a green light.
But you can try everything in your power to do it. That's a beautiful thing about living.
I get what you're saying. I think you're right on that, Tyler. But sometimes it's, again, you refocus on what you're doing and realize that what you're offering isn't a good fit.
Right.
But, and yet, however you want to say it, I would say yet, right? You guys ever do that? The way you guys talk, right? You know, like it's, when you say but, it's
Right,
always
it's
a
like, but,
negative,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. However,
But
it's
yet,
like Bill Burr's famous.
Just say
for that.
yet.
He'll be like,
oh yeah,
he'll
the
be-
however.
He'll be like, he'll be
Yes.
saying something about like how everything's
However.
however, though.
But if you turn it into a yet, the yet actually, I think, is more a inner reflection on you. I think there's a lot of times where you can look at this. It's like, yeah, you know what? Like you're saying, yet people around you, sales, whatever it might be, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I'm gonna get better at what I'm doing. For me, for my job, for my personal life, for my whatever it is, whatever the effort is, I'm gonna keep honing my craft. And I've taken into consideration your red light. And I can just not sleep. I can just beat my head against the wall until I can turn into a yes. But sometimes I think that, you know, and again, not listening to this or reading that book, I think that there are times where it's like sometimes a no is a blessing in disguise because it wasn't a good
Absolutely.
fit for everyone.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden it's like you could turn it into, you reflect on yourself, you get better at what you're doing. You know that, you know what, you're right. I'm not a good fit for you. I'm not a good fit for your shop. I'm not a good fit for you as a person.
Right.
And now I've gotten better at me. I've gotten better at what I do. I've gotten better at what I do on a day-to-day basis. And now all of a sudden, if that red light can turn into a green light, it's not because of what you did actively towards that person, try to beat them down. It's literally because now all of a sudden everyone else is talking about you as a salesperson, you as a person. You're just you're getting better at being you, and now people are asking about it.
So during that Rogan podcast with McConaughey, he Matthew goes in depth with being very upfront on like why he kept a journal for 36 years.
I love the first 10 minutes where he's like, I thought I forgot more, and I remembered more than I thought I would.
Right. And he goes, there's going to be a time where I start getting a lot of red lights, and sometimes I forget where I'm at, and I forget who I am almost, and I forget how what it took to get more green lights popping in my life. And he goes, that's why I look back in those journals.
Yeah.
To where I was getting a lot of green lights, and then I start remembering like, oh, this is me going back to my values, my morals, my whole, meditation process of being me. And he goes back to that, and he learns how to get back into it. He calls it losing his wink, and he's like, I gotta have my wink. It's if I lose my wink, then I don't know who I am at that point. So then he goes on his crazy trips to. He goes to his crazy trips in to Mali, Africa, or Peru by himself during his fame, and ends up doing like these, month-long, expeditions on, just trying to realign himself with what he was brought up to be a part of. And it's really interesting, just the dynamic of it. It's an interesting way of really honing in on, just remembering where you come from and what you believe in. And it's a good way of just like remembering when everything was going right, this is what I was doing.
Yeah, you're your best student. You're your best way to look at that.
Well, and one of the things I was thinking about while you were
when I was delivering that monologue,
actually while Steve was talking,
I said very brief.
But no, like
brief comments saying.
but
Thank you, bartender, by the way.
You're welcome. But I think it also
Shout out to Austin and Bourbon Collective for the Heaven Hill product that I'm sipping on.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of points in life that relate to when we're actually driving, to play off the whole green light metaphor. You would rather run into a red light than run into a green light that turns red. Because that green light, like you see that green light down the road and you're excited, like, yes, I'm going to make it through this. And then it turns, and you're like, son of a bitch.
Right.
But like, maybe that was a good thing that it turned red. Maybe that saved you from something like,
maybe it makes you more of aware. Like,
it
keeps you from keeping your head on a swivel.
I mean,
instead of having the blinders on and just boom, boom, it's not everything's gonna be fucking red, green light, green light, green light, green light.
It could stop.
Boom, red. You got to readjust.
Yeah, there might be some jackass coming the other way that runs their red light. Like,
right. Yeah.
I mean, you don't know because sometimes
you hit a red and it can turn right on red.
Ooh, right on red. There's a good segue off of this. I don't think we have enough time, but that's a damn good segue.
That's a whole nother hour and a half.
I pulled that out. I think AJ Kazmierzak was on a while back, and we talked about that stuff.
It's a coffee Viking guy,
right?
Yeah.
Getting married on Sunday, by the way.
Really? Congratulations.
Heading there. That's going to be a great wedding.
About damn time.
Very good. It's very good.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Good for him.
But no, I mean, there have been times in my life where, I've wanted to pursue either a relationship or a job opportunity that I felt was right, but then something happened that prevented that. And I look at how that transpired afterwards. I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's a good thing that didn't happen. When I was, shortly after I started as a cigar rep, there was another company that had an opening. And because I was friends with someone in that company, like they were thinking about offering me that position, but they knew I had recently started with my employer at that time. And so they didn't offer it to me. Eventually, like I said earlier, mine didn't work out. But eventually that other company got sold and bought out and they were all out of a job anyway.
Yeah.
So
I think I can figure out who that was.
Yeah, you probably could.
With the twos, with the fours, and here we are.
But no, so by the time that all transpired.
Is my boss familiar with that company?
Yes.
Yeah.
By the time that all transpired, I was already with another company and another career. So I'd already gotten my feet back underneath me and had started building myself up again instead of, potentially having that job for a few extra months and then being forced into starting over again.
Okay.
I'd already gone through that. And so that was one of those where it was kind of a blessing in disguise. Like, cause I actually told that person cause it was while I was still working with my previous employer that they told me about that. And I was like, oh man, if you'd have told me, but they also knew that I was not one of those people that was going to, try and jump ship every year, a couple years to go to another company.
You get a reputation for that that quick.
It happens in every sales industry. Yeah, Steve talked about that in his old industry. You have those people that their resume, it's a new sales
There's
job
a reason
every
they've had several sales jobs. They always want the next best thing.
Yeah. And initially when my friend told me about that, I was like, yeah, I would have loved to work for you. I would have loved to work for that company. I like what that company's doing. But then several months later, not the same thing happened, but an even worse thing I think happened where all of a sudden everyone was let go from that company like that. And
that's outside circumstances.
It is outside circumstances.
I get what you're saying.
But you don't always control those.
Yeah. If say that didn't happen, all of a sudden they blew up. Now all of a sudden you missed that opportunity, right? So those are outside circumstances. I want to bring up Charlie Creekmore's comment here, if you guys don't mind.
Go ahead.
Because this is a great sports metaphor. He says, get used to it. Rejection, that is. However, that is the base hit, metaphorically speaking, but It's not always a home run. You hit for average. You close sales for average, but you got to get into the box and swing the bat and hit away. So he's talking about like the numbers game, right? You know,
Right. Yeah.
baseball is one of those things. And he's talking about that. If
Hey, my Cleveland Guardians are going to the
listen,
playoffs, baby.
all right.
Woo! Where are your Cubbies at?
Better
Still-
than my Reds.
They have a bigger history than the Indians. But I'm just going to say,
Guardians. You just got us canceled again. We can't call them that, Crane.
yeah, your Indians are going to finally get to the World Series and win one, and they're going to be the Guardians. How's that feel? No, I'm just saying.
Change needs to take place before some shit gets worked out.
Oh, now here we are. Here we are. No, I look at that as like, you know, we always like a lot of people talk about that. Like if you were working your job and you like sales,
Right.
and you hit 2.5 to 3 out of 10 sales, you'd probably be fired.
Probably.
You know?
Yeah.
Depends on how big those sales
But he's
are,
talking
right?
about,
Right, there
you
you
know,
go, yeah.
but he's saying you get in the box and swing and bat and hit away. I agree with that. But the pitcher, shopkeeper, as he says, is throwing me rejection fastballs, rejection sliders, rejection curveballs, and cutters. Read the pitch, anticipate the next pitch, and think what he's going to throw next. Hit away. So I'll say this is that it's one of those things. I'm going to take this as a comment here. I hope you guys had a chance to read that on the live feed or the video. It's something that you do need to mirror. You need to know the personality of the person. We've talked about the disc thing. You know, we talked about this on the podcast in part 2 before. What I look at this is from the other side of it. If you are that pitcher, I don't know if you guys ever pitched or if you guys out there ever pitched before, but
Yep.
it's one of those things is when things are working well for you, you're not thinking, right? You're not thinking because everything's working. No matter what you do, you
feel like you're in control.
You are in control.
Right.
Because everything's working.
Right. Yeah.
No one's questioning anything you're doing. You're doing well. You're striking people out. You're making them hit into your fielders. You're doing everything and you're getting out of the game, right? When you can't do that, you're off. Now all of a sudden, what do? You start analyzing everything. Why am I not on? Why didn't I close the sale? Why didn't that girl like me?
Overanalyzing.
You're overanalyzing. You're just analyzing. I mean, but you're overanalyzing. It's like, all right, so I gotta change the way I deliver it. I gotta change the way that I take a step in that pitch, right? You know what I mean? Like I gotta kick my leg higher. I gotta do this. Now all of a sudden you're overanalyzing your delivery. You're doing everything just to make it work, right? So no matter if you're trying to strike out a batter, no matter if you're trying to close a sale, no matter to like you, whatever you're doing, all you're doing is just putting it back on you with no confidence. All you're doing is taking that red light, right? When things are hitting, for those that have played baseball, if you understand this, is that when things are going well and you can do no wrong, what do you have? A green light. When you're a batter, green light.
Green light.
You're in a slump. You're not doing well. You're not closing sales. You're not hitting the ball. You're not making that girl like what you're saying.
Right.
What do? You got a red light. Hey, calm down.
Yeah. That red light's probably there for a reason.
That red light's there for a reason. It's not your day.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden, what do? Do you keep trying, or do you take a step when they pull you out of the game? You're right.
You be your fucking self.
You
can
can-
you say, "How you doing?" Keep it fucking moving.
Well, what you
No,
can
you
do is
you take a step back.
Or you take a step back.
You take a step back.
And
You
then
make-
you say, "How you doing?" Keep it moving.
you make adjustments. You don't make drastic changes. There was a great example of that in it was a baseball like pregame show. It was Pete Rose, Alex Rodriguez, and Frank Thomas. And they'd asked Pete Rose,
It's like their Fox. I think that's the Fox crew.
yeah.
That does
and
that.
So they were asking Pete Rose, who has the most hits of anyone ever in the history of baseball.
Greatest hitter of all time.
Absolutely. And they were like, "What'd you ever do when you were in a slump?" And he goes, "First, you never admit you're in a slump." But he goes, if a certain pitch is getting to you, you make adjustments. Like you move up in the box, you move back in the box, you move towards the plate, away from the plate, choke up, choke down. Well, what was important, he goes, you never change your swing.
Yep.
Because your swing is what got you to the big leagues.
So that is adapting to that's mirroring. You got to make sure you're doing what you're doing. Not everyone's gonna like you.
No, not
You're not always
like
you're not you know what? You're gonna strike out to a certain pitcher. You're gonna do all this stuff. The sports metaphor is that yeah, you can adapt, but if all you do is change everything, that's not
Fugazi.
well, that's yeah, exactly. That's not you.
Yeah.
But there is a point that the old you may not be adapting to the game that is today. Now all of a sudden you do need to get back and you need to practice more. You need to in life or sales or whatever it might be, you need to grow as a person. You need to hone your skills.
Yeah.
Because if you think that you know everything, you don't.
No.
You do today, maybe. But when you don't, you don't. And all of a sudden, things have changed around you. And if you think that all you can do is just, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, well, you're a dinosaur and you're gonna fail. You're going to hear no. You're going to strike out. You as a pitcher.
The wealthiest man in the world isn't perfect.
No.
And they don't know everything. They might know a lot, but they don't know everything.
The most successful people absolutely adapt to the world around them.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think that's sales. I think that's personal relationships. I think it's everything. Going back to the whole thing, and we can get into closing remarks here soon because we're getting to that moment. But I think that it is something that when you realize, I think this is a great, great parallel to what we talked about earlier in the part 2 of this podcast, is what happens when you stop saying, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is you think you know everything. You think everything's in check. You think it's all green lights.
You
and
think
all of a
she
sudden,
still loves you even though she's not saying it. And the next thing you know, boom, gone.
Just saying.
Gone.
God damn, man. I didn't know you're a Patriots fan.
Oh.
Even though he plays for the Buccaneers, I didn't know. I was just saying. All right. Closing remarks, Greenlights. Go ahead, Tyler.
First off, thank you guys for having me once again. I always love coming to the garage and hanging out with you guys.
For this.
No, not at all. No, just learn to appreciate. My closing remarks is learn to appreciate the green lights while you have them, because red lights are going to come at some point, and always remember what you were doing when you're having a lot of green lights, and always look back at it.
Yeah.
And learn from your past.
Why were you getting green lights?
Yeah. Because obviously you had your wink at that point. And at some point you may have lost it. So go back to where your roots are and try to find your wink back.
Don't wink, kid.
Don't wink, kid.
Throw it right at your head.
Keep it light, Dutch. Keep it light.
Nate?
Little Ghost from Girlfriend's Past fucking quote right
Jesus
there.
Christ. McConaughey fanboy here.
I respect you, dude. What do you want from me?
We're going to do a Southie movie marathon here in the garage. I got to find if Matthew McConaughey is in a Southie movie. I don't think he is.
I don't think so.
Like Mark Wahlberg or?
Oh, yeah, Wahlberg. Leo, Matt Damon,
Yeah.
The Departed.
Departed.
Oh,
We'll
please,
do that.
God,
All right,
no.
so a couple Sundays from now, I hope you're in the town because you need to be here.
I would love to be here.
All right. Nate?
So for my closing remarks, as I said a couple times during this, there's yes, no, and not now. Just because it's a red light doesn't mean it's not going to turn green. Don't force the issue, because sometimes that light might be red for a reason. It might be there to protect you from a worse outcome. Be patient, because it either might turn green or it might send you to a different path that might be a better outcome. I think sometimes we kind of get in the habit, if we come across a bunch of red lights, when a green light finally presents itself, like we let off the gas, we coast, because we've had so many red lights that we're just anticipating the next one to turn red, even though it's not. And, when you're driving on the road, you end up holding up traffic and people honking and riding up your ass. But it's because, you weren't taking the opportunity that presented itself because all you were thinking about was all the negative ones that had happened just before. And I know I'm guilty of that in the past, where there have been some opportunities I didn't take because of either past rejections or past failures. And that's actually been one of the biggest things I've had to overcome is not taking an opportunity that presented itself because I carried over a past failure. Bless you.
Yeah, he just lit up. Yeah.
You okay, Pat?
Yeah. I'm
But no, there were times where I didn't.
6-1 Warhead I relit. Got my nose.
There were times I didn't take an opportunity or a green light because of past rejections or past failures. And, I ended up, turning off the road that had a green light, or ended up stopping at an intersection that had a green light in my personal life. Obviously, with those types of situations, I don't know how it would have turned out. You can only guess, you can only speculate. But if you spend too much time doing that, you're just going to drive yourself crazy.
Yeah.
If you spend too much time focusing on the opportunities you passed up, you're not going to focus on the opportunities that you actually do have in front of you.
Yeah, I think to the metaphor of green light, red light thing, I think if all you do is think about the red lights, we all think about the negative things, like the negative circumstances we were in, the bad experiences, the negative reviews on whatever business you're in. If you focus on that without the goal of learning from it, you get caught up. That's I've learned a long time ago that, and I've used this example a lot on this podcast and this show, is that hand in your face thing. Hand in your face thing a lot of times is that red light. When the green lights are coming, it's easy. I mean, we all know that. If you don't hit if you're running late to work, if you're trying to get to somewhere and the ETA on your GPS is 3 hours, 6 hours, whatever it might be, and all of a sudden you get stuck in traffic, you're like, you just get annoyed. There's nothing you can do about it sometimes. And I think that sometimes that if you realize that the red light, you don't have as much control over it as you want to, and you sometimes fester on that, and you stew on that, and all you want to do is change those red lights into green lights. It's overcompensating, it is pushing it, and you are just going to push away the people that you're trying to impress. Walking into most situations, the more confident you can be on who you are and your skill set and who you are as a person, I think that's the moment that those green lights can be more open to you, because those come easy. The yellow lights, the red lights, all that stuff, you realize that you're fine. Now all of a sudden you're at a red light and you're relaxing. The things that are important to you, when you realize what's important to you, are still there waiting for you. If all you're trying to do is change history, you're changing what's happening outside of you and the factors that you don't have as much control over. Now you're festering and you're upset and you're just getting anxious about all these things that are holding you back and holding you back on what you want out of life or out of that situation, that sales call, that relationship, whatever it might be. I think that's where you sit there and you fester. But if you can sit at a red light, you can turn up the music, roll the windows down, and just wait for it to turn green. That's where you know that you are driving a course that you know that you feel confident about, and you'll learn. why some people say no to you, why people aren't interested in you, why people flick you off, why people are honking at you no matter what.
Yeah.
But if you literally just sit there and you're like, yeah, no, it's just a red light. It's simply just a red light. They said no. Life says stop. And you think, why? Now when you get the green light, you're ready to go through it. And I think when you're ready to go through those green lights, you don't take them for granted. It's not because you're running late or because you're anxious about making people happy. Those green lights really feel very welcome. Because the next red light you come up to, you are so happy to take a moment and hit your brakes, and you're ready for when it turns green.
I wish Jess was actually commenting on the feed because she just texted me. She goes, "There's a reason the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror."
There it is. I think we all know what we need to do and what we need to work on, and I think that's always a constant struggle. And that's the biggest thing for me is that it's you're going to hit some red lights. You don't even realize why you hit the red light, but you can always learn from it. And I think the biggest thing is that you learn from it for yourself. And I think that we make ourselves, if you're on the right path, you make yourself your better self so that people can respond, hopefully, the way you want them to. And if they don't, it's another red light. That's okay. You wait for that green light. Guys, happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Glass is empty, but we can.
Nope, can't cheer with you.
Yeah, we need to get some
Give
whiskey
me
in
that
this
bourbon
glass. Now,
Collectus.
this you're delaying the inevitable here.
Attaboy.
You never cheers with an empty glass.
That's why
Cheers,
I meant-
guys.
I said something.
Happy Whiskey Wednesday, guys. See you next week.